A Tuesday edition of the Sports Bash starts right now. What's going on, everybody? I'm your host, Mike Gill. Josh Henning producing today's show. You out there as we get you ready for a 4-hour journey on the Sports Bash here on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. And if you're watching the show live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, what's going on, everybody? Hopefully you're enjoying what is a pretty beautiful day out there. I got to be honest. It's starting to turn around, starting to get some nicer weather like that. But just 2 days to the NFL draft. Well, there is other things going on other than the NFL draft. But I got to tell you, I just am highly anticipating what's going on with this NFL draft and all the different things and how the movement could happen and what could happen at the top. We'll get it. Break it down today. John Clayton tonight in the 5 o'clock hour has his top 50 prospects in the draft. And I wanted to talk to John about those top 50 prospects because I want to ask him the difference between Waddle, Smith, Surtain, Horn. What separates those guys for him when he's ranking his top 50 prospects? John Clayton tonight, 5:25. Joined us to talk a little football. Jeff Kerr's back. We're going to talk to Jeff throughout the rest of the week, talk a little football. We're going to go inside the NFC East, get his thoughts on Dallas, New York, Washington football team, and what Philadelphia might do at the 10, 11, 12, and 19 spots. Those teams inside the NFC East all reside. And, of course, we have it covered for you here on the Sports Bash. So, Jeff today, Andrew DiCecco, football at 4, answering your live draft questions. And, of course, the Frank Mailbag, Phillies Mailbag, coming up at the bottom, 40 after the hour here on a Sports Bash Tuesday. As always, I want to start off with two things. One, how about Zach Wheeler last night? We talked about it last week. Pitching. If you can name the two games this season that you enjoyed the most for the Phillies, what are they? Because my two favorite games have been last night with Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola pitching a complete game shutout. They're my two favorite games so far this season. They're the two games that I got most excited about. I saw a stat today that just makes me nauseous for the game of baseball. I got into a conversation via Twitter with a friend of mine the other day about, the DH, not DH, and I'm not a DH guy. And I think the misconception with the DH is that it adds more offense. It really doesn't. I think the American League average is about 4.9 runs per game, and the National League average is about 4.5 runs per game. So both leagues are averaging, team average about 4 runs a game. There's no significance. DH has hit 224. The pitcher, I don't know, hits 130, whatever it might be. The designated hitter is really not adding anything to the game. And the game of baseball isn't adding anything to itself. The number out there that I saw today that is nauseating when it comes to where baseball is. Boog Shambi, Sunday Night Baseball on the radio, tweeted out, the Major League Baseball slash today, 232 is the batting average. It's the lowest ever. Hitters in Major League Baseball are hitting 232. That's what Major League Baseball hitters collectively are hitting, 232. It's the lowest ever. It's the lowest batting average in the history of baseball. In 2008, 42% of swings put the ball in play. That number is down to 35%. In 2008, the swing miss percentage was 20%. This year, hitters are swinging and missing almost 30% of the time. The game is absolute garbage. It's a bad brand of baseball. It's sad. It's sad. So you want to add a DH in? Have at it. To watch that guy strike out too? I'd rather have the pitcher hit who can't hit a lick to add a little bit of element of something in there. What happened on Sunday? What did Joe Girardi said? Well, if we got the pitcher out, who's the one guy that hit for the Phillies a couple games ago? Zach Wheeler had 2 hits. Who's the one guy that can hit for the Phillies in the lineup the other day? Vince Velasquez. We have this perception that the pitcher's just this automatic out. Yeah, they hit 130. You know why they hit 130? They bat once a week. Of course, they're not going to hit 300 collectively. They're not getting every day at bats. That doesn't mean they're automatic outs all the time. You know who's an automatic out? The DH. 232 is an automatic out. If there's a guy in the lineup and he's hitting 232, you've got to get him out every single time he comes up. Let somebody else give up the 23% of his hits. The 23% of the time that he actually gets a hit, let somebody else give those up. Because if I'm pitching, if the guy hitting 232 comes up, he's out. He's got to get out. It's a bad brand of baseball. And you saw it last night. Look, I'm not taking anything away from Wheeler. I thought he pitched great last night. I would have liked to seen him finish that game out. Unfortunately, he didn't get it done. But I was happy that Girardi let him go into the 9th last night. He gets charged with the 1 run on 1 hit. He had the 3 walks. That 3rd walk, I think, was what got him pulled from. Obviously, the 3rd walk comes in the 9th. He was trying for a shutout. The leadoff walk, I think Carpenter was up. He had been up to 114 pitches, so Girardi goes to Neris. And then Neris, gets into a little bit. He gets out of it. But what an embarrassing stat. To which somebody, would say, somebody tweeted at me, it's not all on hitting approach, though. You now have pitchers with 5 pitches that can throw 97 to 100 consistently with, movement. I said, I agree with that. I 100% agree that pitchers are better, too. They throw harder. They've got more in the arsenal. It's a valid statement. However, the approach isn't an approach to combat that these pitchers are now better. It only enhances the effectiveness of the pitcher. You got a guy throwing 97 to 100. I can't swing out of my shoes. He's going to blow it by me, as you're seeing 30% of the time. The beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I'm a fan of the chess match. When a fan has tickets to a game, first question, who's pitching? There are so many, and this is where the conversation gets lost with the DH and the hitter and the batter and the pitcher and this and that. There are so many games within the game on every pitch. And I get it. I'm the outlier here. But that's why people want the DH, because they don't understand that there's a game within the game on every single pitch. Every pitch is setting up the next one. Why did he throw that pitch just a hair over your hands? Because I wanted your eye level to raise up so that I can come with a little wrinkle on the next one. It's all about moving the eye level. I want to throw something up over your hands to get your eye levels up. Well, why'd you want to do that? Because the next pitch I want to start at your head, and then I want to, bang, throw a little deuce. Have your eyes go up, eyes go down. There's a game within the game on every single pitch. Adding a DH and more runs isn't going to help if you don't understand the game within the game. And I'm watching that Phillies game last night, and I'm thinking, people are probably bored to tears with a game that's 1-0 in the 8th. And I'm saying, this is the game that I enjoy right here. You know why? Because now what ends up happening? Zach Wheeler, am I going to keep him in the game? Am I going to take him out when his spot in the order comes up? What am I going to do? You have a pitcher who's absolutely dominating the game, but there's only 1 run on the board. So now I have to make the decision. That decision never comes up. And I have to make that decision all the way through that game, starting at about the 6th inning. Wheeler's spot in the order comes up. We only have now. When did the Phillies end up getting the second run of that game? I think they got that in the 9th. I don't think they got that till the 9th. So it's 1-0. And Hoskins 2 homers, by the way. Hat tip to him. It's 1-0 in the 7th, right? It's 1-0 in the 7th. Wheeler's cruising along, but we haven't scored a run yet. Every single time from the 7th inning on. Now, Wheeler came up. He was the 3rd batter in the 8th. There's 2 outs. The 8th inning, we have 1 run on the board. Wheeler's dominating. What do? Do I hit for Wheeler and try to get another run, or do I let Wheeler stay in the game and he's dominating? There's the game within the game. That is what baseball needs to embrace and enjoy, not promoting that Major League Baseball hitters are hitting 232. It's the lowest ever. The ball is being put into play 35% of the time. If that is what you are, if that is your product, you need to start promoting something different. You know how in basketball, it's Kevin Durant in the Nets taking on LeBron James in the Lakers. Well, you've got to do it where it's Jake DeGrom in the Mets and he's facing, and it's got to be that pitching matchup. Because you can't keep promoting a game that the league is hitting 232. It's horrendous baseball. Horrible. Wheeler was great last night. He got into the wiggle in the 9th, but overall, 9 strikeouts, 8 innings. I mean, you used to be impressed by a guy who got 9 strikeouts. Now I'm yawning. 9 strikeouts, whatever. Who cares? Adam Wainwright, who, by the way, stinks. He used to be really good. Adam Wainwright hasn't been good in probably 5 years, right? When was the last time Adam Wainwright was decent? He stinks this year. He hasn't been good in, I don't know. I mean, when was the last time Adam Wainwright? He used to be the ace of that staff. I'm not taking anything away from him, by the way. But Wainwright really hasn't been any good. I mean, it probably going back to 2014 was the last time Wainwright had an ERA under 4. Last year, really kind of weird year, so he only had 10 starts. But Wainwright really hasn't been since 2014. Wainwright hasn't been good since 2014 in 7 years. And he comes out and strikes out 9 last night, or I think he had 8 strikeouts. That's how bad the game is. Adam Wainwright. I mean, he's got an ERA of 4, 0-3, and 8 strikeouts. Bad baseball, guys. Bad baseball. Jeez. Holy moly. I'm watching that game last night, and I'm thinking, look, Wheeler, I love watching a pitching duel, but I saw that stat today, and I'm laughing. I'm thinking, they are trying to promote this game with all this excitement and this new offense, and they're talking about it. You know, Trevor Bauer, God bless him. I appreciate what Bauer has to say. They better have a clown show going on. They need a clown show going on. They need a circus. They need Tatis flipping bats and covering his eyes and staring the dugout down. They better do something because at 232, my gosh. Like, this is where, like, the younger generation, somebody has to look at this and say, hey, you know, Major League Baseball hitters are hitting 232. What's the problem here? Why is that happening? Why are professional hitters hitting 232? Why is that? What is the difference in the game now to which these hitters are hitting 232, the lowest of all time? What's the reason? Yeah, I get it. Pitchers are better. They are better. But is it because the approach isn't an approach to combat why pitchers are better? We've only enhanced why they're better. We've enhanced why pitchers are better. We've allowed them to, we've acquiesced to them. If you're pitching today, you've got a smile on your face ear to ear. The best players on the team strike out half the time, it seems like. If I go up there and Bryce Harper's up, I should be shaking in my boots. Most of these guys are saying, I'm going to strike you out. These pitchers all have it in their head. I can get one past you. And Harper, by the way, struck out last night. Strikes out a lot, by the way. So what we're seeing, that stat, I looked at that stat. John Sciambi tweeted out, Boo Sciambi, last night. Major League slash today, 232, 310, 390. The on-base percentage, the OPS, awful. It's the lowest batting average of all time. But the number that's unbelievable, 35% balls in play. So, yeah, about 70% of the time, people are standing around doing nothing. People are standing around doing nothing. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. Hit me up on the text board. And this is what I want to ask you guys. Were you a baseball fan, right? Were you a baseball fan that has lost interest in the game, and why? Are you a baseball fan that enjoys the game the way it's being played now? Were you a baseball fan that no longer enjoys the game? Are you a baseball fan that enjoys the way the game is being played now? Somebody tweeted at me, at Mike Gill Show, says, I'd love to see a team buck the system and bring back 80s baseball. Load up with contact hitters and speed on the bases, steal, hit and run, bunt, opposite field hits all day. Would be interesting how today's analytics would tell you how to defend a team like that. You know, that's a hilarious point. I would love to see like the 1987 St. Louis Cardinals, Vince Coleman, Willie McGee, and see how that team would play in today's baseball. I'll tell you what, they're a hell of a lot more fun to watch than what I watch every single day and night. It's bad baseball. It's bad baseball. Holy moly. And I hate to say it. I really do. Because I'm all about, I have these arguments with Billy Schweim all the time about, look, the game can't be played like this anymore. You know, you can't. I get it. Games are changing and fighting and this and that. But holy moly. And I get it. You can't bring back the 80s style of baseball. I mean, you'd be the one team out there doing it. But, man, it's bad baseball. Here's the difference. You watch hockey. These guys are more skilled. They have way more skill. These baseball players have more power, more speed, more everything. But for whatever reason, they're hitting 232. The hockey now, they're more skilled players. From top to bottom, from top line to bottom line, they're just more skilled. They can roll 3-4 lines out at you. I mean, you couldn't do that in 1987. The football now, the guys are more skilled than they were back in the 80s and 90s and even the 2000s. You got 3 running backs who could get 1,000 yards if you wanted to. You get 3 or 4 wide receivers, all can do similar things. You couldn't do that back then. But in baseball, think about this. Tony Gwynn, and I hate to be this guy. I feel like today I'm the old guy. This is the first day that I feel I've acquiesced to being the old guy. But I will only bring it up in a situation that I think it's warranted. I'm not the guy that screams for this game's got to go back. I'm not. You know that. I am all about, I don't care. Flip the bat. I love what Trevor Bauer said. I have no problem with them bat flipping. I don't think the pitcher, I said this to Schweim the other day. The pitcher gave up a home run. Why would he throw at the guy? You're the one that gave up the home run. So what? That guy celebrated. Who gives a crap? I'm not about hitting the guy to prove a point. So I'm not that guy. This brand of baseball stinks in a game that Tony Gwynn, Mark Grace, Wally Joyner, and I'm just giving you a couple of guys. Like, these guys hit 313, 330. They wouldn't have a job in today's game. Seriously. Tony Gwynn probably doesn't have a job in today's game. And you might be like, are you kidding me? Some people might ask, who the hell's Tony Gwynn? But Tony Gwynn might not have a job today because he hit 337, but he can't hit the ball over the fence. Wally Joyner, what did he hit? 313. He's not hitting the ball over the fence. Mark Grace, what does he hit? 320. Can't hit the ball over the fence. I don't need you. Instead, 232. That's the batting average of today's baseball. Holy mackerel. So I need you guys to text me 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. Did you like baseball and no longer do because of the style? Do you like the style? Give me a little yin and yang here. Somebody just texted in. The Royals are playing contact baseball, stealing bases, sack flies, and they're in first place. I definitely want to get your feedback on this. I got into an interesting conversation, about this the other day, about the DH and not DH and the game. I said, look, the DH takes the game away from the game. I understand, I'm the outlier here. I enjoy the game within the game. On every pitch, there's a game within the game. No balls, one strike. What should I throw here? And if I throw this pitch, why am I throwing it? 1-1. All right. I threw a fastball on the outside part of the plate for a strike. I followed it up with a ball that was up and away. Now what? Is he looking away? Or is he looking down and in? Is he looking off speed? There's 3 different games that just went on right there. And if you watch the game with that in your mind, every pitch, you might enjoy the game more. Because now you're thinking, what's he going to do here? It's 1-1. Is he going fastball? Is he going fastball inside? Is he going fastball up and in? Is he going to show him a wrinkle? Is he going to go change up? Is he going up and away? There's 5 things that just happened on a 1-1 pitch. And the pitch hasn't even been thrown yet. There's more action that just happened there than in any huddle of a football game, right? So when you watch the baseball game, play that game with yourself. And I promise you, you will enjoy the game a lot more than just sitting there and waiting for the pitch to be thrown. See, for me, I don't care about waiting for the pitch to be thrown because I'm going through 4 scenarios. It's a ball and 2 strikes. All right. How did I get the 2 strikes? Did he swing and a miss? Did he foul one off? Did I throw a curveball to start? If I threw a curveball to start and then I threw a fastball for the second strike and then the ball I threw was up over his hands, can I throw a curveball now and try to get him out? Because now his eye level has raised. The ball is up over his hands. The eye level has raised. Now I'm going to try to sneak a curve by him. I want the eye level to go back up and then the ball to drop on down. I want to see if I can catch him swinging. There's the game within the game. 232. 232. Holy mackerel. All right. I started with that today. Text me. Give me your thoughts. Did you like baseball? No longer like it? Like the game today? Like baseball but don't like the way it's played today? That's kind of where I'm at. I love baseball. I am sorry. I have got into all the other brands. Football, I don't care. Basketball, I like the older style of basketball better, but I still watch every night, and I don't complain about it. I just don't like it's like, okay, 3-pointers all night long. Okay, but I just love basketball. This baseball's bad. It's bad baseball. And we should be ashamed that this is the baseball that we're embracing. 232. My God. Sports Bash brought to you by Matt Blatt Nissan. The all-new Matt Blatt, open, Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township, next to Home Depot, online, mattblattnissan.com. Frank Klose, 240 today with the mailbag. Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Watch the show live. I'm Mike Gill. What's going on? Coming up in 10 minutes from now, Frank Klose answers your Phillies questions in this week's mailbag. A lot of good stuff coming in. Cole LBI says, Mike, I love your take on baseball. Appreciate you, Cole. I know you don't appreciate my takes on everything, so that means a lot coming from you. No, we kid. Mike, I love players that hit for average, players on base, stealing bases, game between pitchers and runners on first base, attempting to steal second. That's from Angel and Violent. Yeah, that's, people forget about the little games within the games too. You got to put a batter at the plate, but you got a runner on first. Is he going to take off? I mean, that element's gone now. You don't even need to know how to hold runners on anymore. But if you're watching the game last night, masterful pitching. And I don't know how you do it. I don't know. Look, I'm not telling you that I think other people think like I do in terms of, hey, everybody wants to see a pitching duel. But right now, that's what your league is. It's just a league of strikeouts. It's guys striking out and hitting home runs. Guys that hit home runs, you don't even know who they are half the time. Everybody can do it. So why not find a way? Look, I know you can't make the pitching matchups, but a lot of times you get pitching matchups where the aces match up against each other. Like, you got to do your best to get those pitching matchups together and highlight them. Because in the end, they're the stars of the show. Zach Wheeler, to most people, is a nobody. You've got to find a way to make him a somebody. He's 2-2. I get it. He's not like some Cy Young star. But that's the problem. Those are your stars. Zach Wheeler's the star. He should be anyway. Not a guy hitting 232. You got a handful of them. I'm not taking that away. You do have a handful of guys who are fun to watch and that you should be promoting to the moon. Nobody knows who Mike Trout is. So if you can't get Mike Trout to be popular, if your game can't find a way to make Mike Trout popular, you better go to plan B. Because Mike Trout for 10 years has been one of the best players that any of us have ever seen. And you can't figure out a way to make him popular. And let me tell you, Rhys Hoskins leads the league in home runs right now. I know you're not making him popular. Nobody knows who Nelson Cruz is. Nobody knows who Eduardo Escobar is. And they're your 3 home run leaders right now. So you better move on to plan B. How about Jacob deGrom? 0.31 ERA. Is Jacob deGrom that good, or are the hitters that bad? I'm not taking anything away from deGrom. 0.31. I mean, what's his whip? Negative? My God. Seriously. I mean, Jacob deGrom, and somehow he's 0.31 ERA and has a loss. Jeez, come on, guys. Because his team can't score either. His whip is 0.55. He puts less than one runner on base every inning. It's unbelievable. That's the guy. Every time Jacob deGrom pitches, if you're ESPN, he's got to be on TV. If you're whoever has the baseball rights, ESPN, Fox, when they get their games in the second half of the year, he's got to be on TV every single time. And guess what? Those are the guys. If you're baseball, the game is so bad offensively right now. It's awful. You're promoting the wrong thing. If you have a league that the average of every hitter in the league is 232, then you can't be sitting here saying we have this great offensive game. Garrett Cole has a 171 ERA. It's outstanding. You know where that sits on the list? 9th. Garrett Cole's ERA is 171. Now, I get it. We're 5 games in. But a 171 ERA, and I'm picking Garrett Cole because he's the biggest name of the group. And that's the 9th best ERA in baseball. You know why? Because there's 8 guys in front of him you never heard of. Danny Duffy, Trevor Rogers, John Means, Corbin Burns. These guys have ERAs in the ones. Their whips are under 1. You got a big problem if that's the case. JT Brubaker. Yeah, I never heard of him either. 609-403-0973 over on the video stream. We got a lot going on. So Bob says, immediate gratification, home runs are more pleasing to the eye than having the player work for the run. That's just, I get that. Yeah, it's more, but the home run has become the 3-point shot. It's just like remember there was a World Series game a couple of years ago? It was the Cubs. Who the Cubs play in the World Series? Was it the Rangers? The year the Cubs finally won the World Series? The Indians. And the game was this back and forth homer fest. Remember that? There was like home run, back and forth. And the next day, people were like, what a game. Yeah, it was exciting. But at one point, you're like, this isn't impressive anymore. This is bad pitching and guys just bopping home runs. It's like when you watch an NBA game sometimes and guys are just bombing threes away. You're like, all right, I've seen this before. The instant gratification part of it is exactly the opposite of what I'm talking about, Bob. The game within the game. You don't want to play the game within the game, which is well within your rights. And I totally get that not everybody wants to play the game within the game. But the point is, as I said before, you don't really like baseball then. You just like action. You're not a baseball fan. You're a fan of action. Jonathan, baseball fans are no longer city baseball fans. Watch fantasy numbers. You can make that argument for a lot of sports. Football, that everything's turned into fantasy sports. All right, we'll get into some more. Frank Klose has the mailbag coming up. Your questions on the way here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. All right, 2:42, time for the mailbag. Phillies with a win last night. They do it in a way that I enjoyed. A pitching matchup, 2-1 win for the Phils. Zach Wheeler almost goes the distance. You don't see that happen too much. Hector Neris comes in the ninth, gets the save. A couple of home runs by Hoskins, and that's all it is. 2-1 pitching duel. Adam Wainwright, like 2014 version of Adam Wainwright. When was the last time he was good? 7 years ago, I think it was. Wainwright stinks, and he shut you down last night. That's how bad this lineup is right now. Can they fix it? Well, a desperate team got desperate yesterday and made a desperation move. We talked about it with Frank Klose. He is back with the latest edition of the Mailbag. And let's check out what's inside this week's Mailbag here with 97.3 ESPN.com Phillies insider Frank Klose. What's going on, Frank?
Not much, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. And I had to start my show off today with a little baseball rant. I saw a Book Siambi tweet today that said baseball as a collective whole is hitting 232. Bad baseball, man. 232. The swing and miss rate is 35%. Ball and play rate 35%, and the swing and miss rate is 27%. It's bad baseball going on right now, and the Phillies are one of the key components of why it's so bad.
And they want to add more teams, right? I mean, is the game just watered down, or are we not attracting enough talent to the sport? I think there's a little bit of everything going on right here because, it seems like interest is down among younger people. They're not playing the game. They're not playing high school, college, and becoming the next generation of major leaguers.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know definitively what the answer is. Like somebody just texted in, is the talent watered down? I think. What the high school baseball, I think, is way better than anything. Like right now, the players at the high school level are way better than the game. But for whatever reason, it's not translating to the pro game. Like the pro game, 232 is awful. I say, let me ask you this question. A guy like Tony Gwynn, Mark Grace, Wally Joyner, these guys who were all like 313, 320, but they never hit home runs. Did they have a job today?
That's a great question. I would think that somebody would value their on base skills, but yeah, I remember going to Phillies baseball camp as a kid, and Larry Boa telling us like, "Hey, I might have had one home run a year. You don't need to be that guy." But is that still the message being sent to kids playing baseball these days? Maybe not.
Well, right. It's like, hey, if you hit a single, nobody wants you. So if you're on base because you hit a single, you're not really all that valuable to me. I need you to either hit it over the fence or double. It's either a double or a home run or strike out. That's okay too because you tried to hit a home run. So if you just hit a single and you do that 33% of the time, you're really not all that valuable to me. Like I remember looking at, like Gwynn would hit 337 with 7 home runs.
Yeah, and he was one of the best baseball players I've ever seen in my life. So, yeah, it's kind of puzzling that people would not want to emulate that.
All right, we talked yesterday, right when it happened, when the Phillies called up Odubel Herrera. Yesterday, Girardi said he got 50 to 60 at bats at the affiliate site. So one of the reasons they sent him down because they said he didn't have enough. He missed 2 years. They wanted him to get more. So is 50 to 60 at bats enough in terms of bringing him up? Or do you think he pulled the plug on the other guys a little too early? Moniak got 19 at bats. Quinn, I think, had 27 at bats. We can't really factor in Hastley, but did he pull the plug on those guys too early, or did they just want to get a Herrera up here?
I don't think they really wanted to get Herrera up. I just feel like in a way, this is like a panic move. The Phillies aren't scoring runs, and actually, if it's pretty interesting that if you look at the games they're losing, it's usually when the back end of the starting rotation is pitching and they're not out slugging the opponents. So I just feel like they were kind of desperate for some offense, and looking at center field as a whole, they just figured, what the heck, we might as well give Herrera one last shot. I mean, this is probably Herrera's last shot. If he doesn't succeed now, then they got to go out and make a trade. I mean, at this point in the season, it's not time to make trades. No team is selling a center fielder yet. So you need some more teams to drop out of the race. So maybe they're just saying, it's not, what the heck, we'll just see what he has now and then trade deadlines in a few months. If he doesn't work out, we can just release him, and that'll be the end of the story.
So do you think they pulled the plug on Moniak too early? 10-game sample size.
So that's a really tough one. We talked about this in spring training. The Phillies seemed to, at the time, really genuinely feel like they wanted him to go to AAA, get regular at bats, because he never went to AAA, right? His last professional game before that quick call up last year was at the end of 2019 in AA. So I think the Phillies really believed that he would benefit from some time at AAA against AAA pitching, and he hasn't had that yet. So that was their gut response in spring training, and it's probably still their gut response. I think they called him up, even though it was kind of against their best wishes. Matt Gelb of The Athletic reported that the Phillies were ready to make that move a little sooner, and then Moniak hit that 3-run home run against the Giants, and maybe they backed off just a little bit and gave him another series. In other words, Herrera might have been on that trip to Colorado originally, but I just think that they really believe what they believed all along was he needs that time at AAA, and that season's going to begin on May 5th. So he's going to go there every day. He's going to probably play center field every day, and they'll see if they feel comfortable calling him back.
All right, that was from Dave. John wants to know, he says, I imagine the Miners offered no solution to the 4th, 5th starter issues. They cannot keep sending Anderson and Moore out there. So what's the plan, Frank Klose?
Well, they did reverse course on one thing, and that's Spencer Howard. And Spencer Howard, at the end of spring training, they said, we don't think we're going to stretch him out as a starter this year. We'll limit his innings by making him a reliever, and he'll start out at the alternate site and work to build up to be a reliever. But now they're reversing course on that. They're gonna send him back to the alternate site, and then the AAA season will begin in a couple weeks. They're gonna let him start. So it has to be directly responsible, a direct response, to what they're seeing from their 4th and 5th starters. So the Phillies are 1-7 when the 4 and 5 spots in the rotation come up. They're 10-4 the other starts. When it's Nola, Wheeler, Eflin, right? I mean that's a huge drop off, right? So they're clearly seeing that yes, maybe this isn't going to work, and so they're going to send Spencer Howard down to AAA to be a starter. Now, once that season gets going, Ranger Suarez is pitching again. He'll be in that rotation. Adonis Medina, who got a cup of coffee last year out of sheer desperation, he was rushed from AA again because they needed somebody in 2020 like Moniak. So they'll have 3 guys in the rotation that they hope that they can turn to if they need to turn to somebody. And one of the shames of these doubleheaders, as they hopefully won't crop up too many times, but you get to bring up an extra player. But if you don't bring up that starter that day, then you deplete your bullpen for the rest of the week. So if you make Vince Velasquez start or something like that. So the effects of a Vince Velasquez start right now are not just Vince Velasquez's 4 innings and that not being enough. It's that they also have 1 fewer reliever in the bullpen, and that the trickle-down effect is a lot. So they got to do something. And my take on this is if Spencer Howard is going to limit his innings, they can bring him up now, use those innings now, and then hopefully by the trade deadline, they'll either be able to trade for somebody or they'll have somebody in AAA that can help make up for some of those innings. But they can't let themselves get too buried. I mean, the opportunity is there. The Braves aren't doing well. The Mets aren't really pulling that far ahead. They've got their own issues in the bullpen and stuff like that. So they don't want to be a 500 team, right? 3 good starters and then 2 that you need to score 11 runs to win. Well, then you're a 500 team, and that's basically what it comes down to. And they need to be better than that, and they have the opportunity to be better than that if they can get some of these things right.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because there's not a lot of, you got the Cole Hamels, the Anibal Sanchez, Jeff Samardzija. You got some veteran guys out there, but that means you're basically taking the chance of doing the same thing you did here, which was throw less money at a veteran pitcher, hoping that he just has one last run in him. So fixing that 4-5 spot doesn't look like it's going to be easy. I'm glad, though, that they are doing what they're doing with Howard. I don't know why they did what they did with him at the start. That was kind of some yo-yo game that they played with him. He should have just been, hey, you're a starting pitcher. You're in the mix here. If you win the job, you win the job. I don't know what this – I know he's had some arm issues, but the Phillies always seem to get it wrong with these young guys, man. Every other team in their division seems like they've got young guys figuring it out, and the Phillies are the one team that's left behind.
Well, I will say this. Max Fried was really supposed to step in to be the ace for the Braves this year, and and he has not been the ace this year. So I don't think it's exclusively to the Phillies. I mean, definitely with what you see with the Braves, I think kind of indicates that a lot of times it's not such a given, and it's it's really hard to find your groove. I mean, the Phillies thought they were getting a couple veterans that would at least minimize the damage and get them to the bullpen at least after 5.
All right, last one, real quick. Let's take a look. The outfield 2022. What are we looking at here? Because McCutcheon's deal is up. Center field's been a mess.
Yeah, this is a tough one. I think the Phillies are really hoping that Mickey Moniak will have a productive AAA in 2021 and kind of show that he can get that job. It seems like they're going to send him there to play center field and see what happens. Internally, they really don't have a lot of outfield options. I mean, you'd hope that Adam Hazley would work out and also Moniak would work out, and then you might be able to staff a couple outfield positions, but it's not going to work out that way, it looks like. And Andrew McCutcheon's going to be a free agent. The Phillies probably have to dip outside the organization to get somebody. But the problem is, at either position, not a whole lot of options for free agents. There's no impact bats in left field or center field. I mean, center field right now, Delino DeShields Jr. is the only free agent center fielder under 30. And DeShields could be had right now. They could trade for him off of the Rangers alternate site if they really wanted to do that. And then in left field, maybe Gregory Polanco. I mean, by far no impact type players. In fact, what I could see the Phillies doing is, we heard in the past that maybe Alec Boehm isn't projected as a third baseman long term. Do they sign one of the younger infield options like the Javi Baez types, and maybe bump someone like Alec Boehm to the outfield? Or yeah, I think they're going to be creative, something along those lines. Chris Bryant's a free agent as well. He could play third base or he could play the outfield. So I think the Phillies are gonna need to probably have to sign somebody with an impact bat and figure out where to put him next year. And somebody's probably gonna have to move to the outfield. I think that's just what's going to happen here.
All right. Of course, this Phillies season continues tonight as they have game 2 against the St. Louis Cardinals. A masterful pitching performance. It is Zach Eflin getting the start tonight for the Phils. We'll see if he can follow up what Zach Wheeler did last night. And then tomorrow is up in the air. I guess Matt Moore will.
It's going to be Vince Velasquez. The Phillies have announced that Velasquez will start, even though Moore is back. So that's kind of an interesting thing, too. Are they going to piggyback the two of them and try to see if they can get a full start out of the both of them? Kind of remains to be seen. But the Phillies do have Aaron Nola on Thursday for the 4th game of the series. So they got Wheeler, Eflin, and Nola in this series. They got to win this series.
Frank Klose, his mailbag on Tuesdays at Frank Klose with a K, Klose. Frank Klose here Tuesday with the Phillies mailbag. And he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. For more Phillies from Frank, go to 973ESPN.com or use the free mobile app and get all of Frank's Phillies coverage on our website. All right, Frank, take care, bud.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline, and he'll be back on Tuesday. And if any news breaks, go to 973ESPN.com or get the free mobile app and have the app alert sent to you on your phone. Phillies app alerts, Flyers, Sixers, and Eagles, high school sports as well. All right, hour 2 of the Bash starts now. It's been a busy week. We got the draft this weekend. We'll dive into that. Last year, the Eagles took a quarterback in round 2, and a video went viral. It was of this man right here, Jeff Nadu, big man on campus. The video went viral because the Eagles took a quarterback in round number 2. I didn't know you at the time, but everybody who wouldn't have known you would know you because you were so perplexed that video was all over the place. If they were to take a quarterback in this year's draft, would we get a semi-nuclear explosion from a much smaller version of Jeff Nadu?
You would get nuclear times 10. It would be like
I just want to see it happen just to see your reaction, but I don't want it to happen.
Well, listen, I don't think it's going to happen, luckily. But, this is a team that really just they have the ability to really screw a lot of things up. But, it was
like if in your half-empty approach, they can screw a lot up, or they can fix this really quickly.
Correct. That's a great point, and that's what I'm hoping for. I'm trying to be more positive, Mike.
I know, man.
I lost all this weight. I'm trying to be more positive. They're going to make the right decision, and they've got to make several decisions, right? I mean, they have a lot of picks. They got some moving and shaking to do. They've already moved once, but when we look at where they are now, there's a lot to be excited about. And I think I've zeroed in on what I think they're going to do. So,
right,
if it happens, I hope.
I wanted to zero it because I was on a show today. I had to be like the mock draft picker for the Eagles on a show today. And I don't like that job because I'm kind of torn. So I had to pick somebody. So because I have like 4 scenarios I see happening. So I want to get inside your head to see where you're going on Tuesday of the draft. Where are your scenarios right now?
I think the scenario that I want, I think we will have. I'm at this point, and I've looked at all these players, and I've went all through them, and I watch a lot of college. I kind of at this point believe that Jace Horn should be the pick. I don't think Patrick Surtain's going to be there, and I don't think you could go wrong with either player. But I've said to you before, and I'm going to say this again, I would draft a corner or a linebacker here, and in the second round I would draft a receiver. I'm beginning to wane a little bit on where we are. If for me it's not Chase or Pitts, I think you go corner. Those two are obviously not going to be there. So at this point, when I look at a guy like Jace Horn, it's hard for me to not take him. I just continue to be marveled at what he can do on the outside, which they desperately need. We know that we don't want to go into the season with Michael Jaquette as the starting corner for this group. I just think the thought of Slay and Horn on one side or both sides is just, elite. He can play in the slot. He can play on the outside. He played against really good competition being in the SEC. He was an all-freshman kind of kid. He's got good size. I just think he's a prototypical guy of what you want. And I saw a comment from an executive for an NFC team. I think it was on the NFL website that mentioned that there's not any corners in this draft outside of maybe Surtain that has his man cover talent, that he's got a chance to be special. So they haven't addressed the cornerback in some time in the draft that worked.
They tried.
You got to hear.
Yeah, they tried. They took, Sidney Jones. They thought they snuck that one in.
Right.
Like Jones in the second round. That didn't work out. Although I'm more interested because Jonathan Gannon apparently is going to play cover 2, so you're going to get like a different style of corner than you did with Jim Schwartz. Jim Schwartz was more, let everything happen up in front of you.
I hate that.
Take tackles. Right. So you're going to see a different style of defense from these guys, which means you need better corners. Schwartz's, kind of idea was we'll get better pass rushers so we don't need as good of corners, which turned into a lot of big plays. I agree. So my scenarios are this. They just stay at 12. Now, the interesting will be, is Waddle there? Is Smith there at 12? And Horn? And if that happens, do they say, that guy's the highest rated guy on my board, I got to take the receiver because he's the best rated player? I still am more inclined to take Horn at 12. Go ahead.
I couldn't agree with you more, frankly. I'm all over Horn at this point. Surtain, the Dallas Cowboys are going to take Surtain, in my opinion. And for me, look, I hate to say this, Mike, but I'm going to say it. If Smith is there, I pass. Give me Horn. Smith has, I think his body concerns me. to be real. And I think Waddle will be gone. I think the Miami Dolphins may look towards taking him. And I think
let me stop you there then.
Yeah.
Miami Dolphins take him. Did they pass on Chase?
No, I think the Bengals are going to take Chase. That's what I think.
Penei Sewell's still there.
I think Sewell will go to probably Carolina.
Interesting. Now, this is an interesting little curveball.
Yeah, and I think for me, like, I really like the second group of receivers in this draft.
Me too.
And I think, to me, a guy that I've targeted, and I was in 2019, I loved the kid. I thought he was the best receiver in the country, that no one really talked about. Rashad Bateman. They need a big player and a kid that can run. He's one of the best route runners in this draft. I watched him constantly on slants just beat Big Ten competition. And I'm talking Wisconsin, Penn State. It didn't matter. Bateman is a very good player. He could play inside. He could play outside. He's better on the outside. He's big. He's bulky. He can go up and get the football. I think he's a legit player. I would look to target both those guys. Maybe get back in the first round.
That's not a bad idea, but here's why I go with Horn at 12 over the receivers. My opinion is they believe, and I got a little bit of this from that press conference, is that Rieger can play, and they believe that J.J. Arcega-Whiteside can play, and that Peterson and his staff didn't get enough out of those guys. Sirianni is known for what? His work with wide receivers. They're saying, we got you the right talent. You didn't know what to do with it. This guy will get talent. Therefore, we're okay with Rieger and Whiteside and Fulgham, and maybe we get a receiver in round 2, but we're going to get the guy at 12, J.C. Horn.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense. But I will say, and I think we all know this, they have to get a receiver in the first round or two. They just have to. The talent that they have, I agree with your point, and that could be what they're thinking, but there's still another body needed. They still have to get someone else. And I even think, even into the Kadarius Tonys, the Rondell Moores, I think you have enough picks in this draft where you could package something and probably get back into the first round. And if I'm them, and if they do that, if they could somehow get a Bateman and a Horn, I would be very happy with this draft. I
agree.
I've said to you before, I don't think they're that far off. But they need to hit on the players they take. And then in the third round, I think you target like a linebacker of some sort or a pass rusher. But
all right, let me ask you this question then. All right, let's play a little fun game here.
Yeah.
If they were to trade up, is there a player you would be willing to do that for? Because I would do it for one guy.
Well, I think I know who you're going to say. You're going to say Pitts.
Correct.
And look, Pitts is terrific. I don't think they're going to do it. I would do it for Chase as well. I think both are special players. And obviously we have the connection with Pitts being from this area or whatever. But I got to be honest, Mike, I would do it for Chase as well. I think he's a special kid. And that's one of the reasons for me why, if you're Cincinnati, I would highly recommend taking him. I think if you grab him with the Joe Burrow connection, I think you almost become one of the better offenses going. I mean, they have a good offense already.
Man, they got the kid killed last year because they can't block.
Well, and that's the problem. And they're either going to go one or two ways. It's either Sewell or Chase.
I mean, as much as Chase, like, you don't want to turn into the Atlanta Falcons where I've got Matt Ryan and Julio Jones, but I can't do anything because I can't protect the quarterback ever.
Right. And look, they did go after Jonah Williams last year. They got him. I guess maybe they think they're higher in Riley. I don't know. But, again, this is a pretty deep draft as far as first and second round. You can always take that in the second round. They're going to have I think they have a pretty high pick in the second round. So we'll see. But,
yeah.
But yeah, it'd be Pitts or it would be it would be Chase. I would be willing to do that. But why not just have stayed at 6 then? Because you could probably
get the first round pick next year.
Yeah, and you probably couldn't get Chase or Pitts anyway at 6. So I guess, undoubtedly
you can get one of them. But this team, here's my take on the 6 to 12 is they have more than just one hole to fill. So move back to 12, fill a hole, and then get another first round pick next year and fill another hole.
But Mike, if you're – and again, I don't mean to be arrogant, but if I was in control of this team, this would be the year that I would be able to address every need. But, weirdly enough, for some reason, they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars and can't address the team needs in one draft. So we're always talking about next year. One thing I will say, if a quarterback or offensive lineman is taken here, I don't know. that would have to. What would the city do if that happens? I mean, you can't just even Kwity Paye. That is not a pick you're making. I saw someone say they're going to take Jamon Smith in the first round.
Here's the scenario here. They're at 12. They get a call because there's a quarterback there, and then they move back, and that's when they take either a defensive end or an offensive lineman.
And don't put it past them because they may do it.
I'm saying if Chicago's at 20 and they call you and they want a quarterback at 12 and he could get another first-round pick next year to move back to 20 because he could get Elijah Vera Tucker or Rashawn Slater. I don't think Slater would be there at 20. I guarantee you he's going to do it if he can get another first-round pick next year because next year's draft is much more science and an inexact science. This one is probably the most inexact of all time.
So are they telling this group and this fan base that Jalen Hurts is not the guy? Because that's what you're telling us, basically. You're basically saying that we don't believe this guy's good enough, so we're going to constantly stack for next year, and we're going to make these stupid claims that Jalen Hurts isn't the quarter. Who's he battling with, Mike?
Nobody. Well, listen, they had to say that, Jeff, because they have to keep the appearance that they might take a quarterback at 12 to get calls.
This is always, and I get it, but this is always the song and dance with this team. Every year, it's we smoke screen by giving our quarterback tons of money, but then the next year we take a quarterback and we're constantly on top of him and what he's doing, but then we're going to bet. It's always something with them, and it's always gaslighting to next year. This team is not that far off. Okay, I don't know why they don't see that. I guess maybe I'm just stupid and see it and they don't. But I'm
the one who said this year. I think with the if the offensive line remains healthy and can come back,
agreed.
They can play. This offense with this line can win. The problem is, do they have the defense? That's the question.
Right. And if you don't have, and again, if you have a guy like Jalen Hurts and you're trying to see if he can succeed. But they did it with McNabb for years, where who's throwing at Charles Johnson and Torrance Small. You finally give him receiver. Look at what Stephon Diggs did for Josh Allen. Now, I'm not saying Jalen Hurts is Josh Allen, but you got to give him the best opportunities to win. And if we go into the season next year with Fulgham and some guy off the free agent heap like Marquise Goodwin or somebody like that, you got to give the guy the best amount of players. And I just, if that's the precedent you're setting, that we're not competing this year and we're just going to fill holes and stuff, it just can't happen. You can address the talent that this team needs in 3 or 4 rounds in this draft. You take a receiver or corner in the first, you flip-flop it in the second, you go linebacker, and you go running back inside offensive line late in the draft. Maybe as well, and I'm going to say this too, Mike, go out and get a kicker, okay? I want to see a 6th-round pick on a kicker.
That's not happening. They got the problem.
They should.
I know, but here's the problem, Jeff. They gave that kicker guaranteed money, and he is dead money if they get rid of him.
Yeah, well, and that's the issue. And I got to tell you, he's had issues since the Super Bowl.
But they do need a punter.
Yes, and again, they need. I think they'll take maybe try a quarterback late, Sam Ealing or somebody like that.
They need a quarterback. They only have 2 on the roster. They need a camp arm at the very worst.
Sure, and I think you'll get that. You have opportunities, but listen, it's Jace Horn, and I think you agree. I'm really falling in love with the kid. I love the competition. They don't usually take players from the SEC, which is concerning. But I'm hoping this is the year where it's like, you know what, they don't usually do this, but then they do it.
Well, then you get Micah Parsons. That would be the ultimate. We don't usually do this, but now we're changing.
And if we know anything about Gannon, when he was in Indianapolis, what did he have?
Linebackers.
Darius Leonard. Now, again, I think you can get it like a Jabril Cox type in the 3rd round, like from an LSU. Look, I would love to see give me a Big Ten and SEC. You can get Bateman, Horn, and a Jabril Cox or the kid from Missouri. There's so many good players in this draft. For anyone that says this is not a good draft, I don't think they're that articulate. There's a lot of good players in this draft.
Good draft. I think it drops off about, it's not as deep because there was 1,000 players that elected to go back to school because of the COVID that they reclassified as seniors. So you had 1,000 guys that dropped out of this draft. So that's why next year everyone's trying to get extra picks next year because there's going to be 1,000 extra players in that draft.
Yeah, that's true. I will say, and you're seeing obviously the quintessential guys falling like a Caleb Fairley. You're seeing that happen. It's definitely a gem draft. It's not as deep. Last year you had so many receivers and corners and all sorts of stuff. But I'm excited for it. I mean, it's going to be a different year this year. Obviously, I think we can contend. And I would be absolutely through the roof if they were to take a Bateman and a Horn, something like that, first and second round. I don't think they're that far off, Mike.
All right, Jeff Nadu at Jeff Nadu. How's the sit down going?
It's going good. I'm really enjoying the show. It's something that I've done a little different. I'm actually getting a pretty good response from it. I'm getting more and more followers every day. More and more people are watching it and checking it out. And it's a lot different from what I'm normally doing. I don't know if I'll continue it once football gets here, but it's a good thing in the summer to do once a week. And people are actually enjoying the show. So,
all right, man. Well, I'll, we'll check it out. People out there, sit down, check it out. Little mob conversation. And it's good to see you, man.
It's good to see you too, Mike. I'm looking forward to the draft. Let's hope I don't have another video from last year because that means it would
follow at Jeff Nadu and check out his video from last year. He just posted it earlier today, so you can see the nuclear reaction when they played Jalen Hurts. Picked Jalen Hurts. All right, man. I'll see you.
Thanks, Mike. Later.
Jeff Nadu, like all guests, appeared via the boardwalk on the hotline. Good back and forth on that. We both like J.C. Horn, it seems like right now. Now, the Sixers, we should both like anyway, what we saw from them last night. But they beat up a pretty bad Oklahoma City team. But Michael Kasky-Blomane has one reason why you shouldn't bail on the Sixers in the East. That's next. All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. And don't forget, you can watch the show live at 97.3 ESPN.com. I'm Mike Gill right now on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. The Sixers with a win last night, which was expected. You got Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons back. They've been pretty good with those two guys, but they don't have the number one seed anymore. But a reason why they might be able to reclaim that. Michael Kasky-Blomain is back for today's Inside the Sixers. He is CBS Sports NBA writer, and he, like us, appear via the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. And if you're watching the show live on video, there he is, MKB. What's going on?
What's up, Mike? How's it going?
All is good, man. And we saw the Sixers win last night, which we kind of thought Embiid and Simmons. That's a bad Oklahoma City team. They are essentially the process Sixers there. But you wrote a piece over at CBS Sports talking about the Sixers and their schedule coming up because they had lost 4 in a row against some good teams, and that's concerning, but they didn't have a lot of pieces. But they could try to make some of these games up here with the full roster, and they have what? The easiest schedule left? Is it in the East or in basketball?
No, it's in the entire NBA, Mike. The last 2 weeks of the season, the Sixers have, the easiest route out of all the teams left. And ultimately, the Nets have one of the top 10 toughest schedules. The Bucks aren't in the top 10, but it's still tougher than the Sixers. So, obviously they got to get healthy and they got to win some games, but the schedule is on their side moving forward for the rest of the regular season.
So they have the easiest schedule left in the NBA. It was a good chance for them to jump over here. Let me ask you, watching last night, I think you and I are on the same page with Ben Simmons. We both appreciate him greatly and what he adds to this team. But seeing what they didn't have when he was out and then what they had last night with him back. And the big question is, MKB, does this translate to playoff success? Because so many people say, look, I only will believe it when I see him in the playoffs. Offensively is where the big problem is, but how much not having him defensively changes things, and then getting him back last night, what that did for them.
Yeah, it's huge, Mike. And I think you could see in those 4 games that, they were missing him. They obviously lost all 4. And that wasn't a coincidence. I think, obviously, it's easy to say, if they had him in the Suns game, they could have potentially put him on, Chris Paul or some of these players toward the end of the game. If they had him in certain games, they could have him on matchups. But so much of what he does on the defensive end translates to easy opportunities for the Sixers on the offensive end. And to me, I think that's what they were missing the most. You would see they were forced to work out of the half court a lot more. They weren't getting the same amount of threes on the fast break because, Ben, obviously, we've said this a million times. He's one of the most dangerous players in the entire league with the ball in his hands in the open court. And he's the type of player that makes him so special. He can get a defensive rebound, not have to outlet it to anyone, take it himself, push the pace. And then he has that vision to find the guys. And at this point in the season, guys like Danny Green, Korkmaz, Seth Curry, they know exactly where to go on the fast breaks to maximize where Ben's going to find them. Danny goes to the corner, obviously, Furkan and Seth on the wings. And Ben is, one of the best at finding those guys. So to me, obviously, they miss him in terms of his individual defense, but also I think they missed him a ton in what his defense generates then to offensive looks for them.
Yeah, and I know that one of the things that I've been wanting to see, MKB, the rest of the way here, we haven't been able to see yet, is how George Hill will fit in.
Yeah.
Problem is he's been playing without Ben Simmons, and he's been playing not the role that they got him for. So did we get a little glimpse of what his role might be and how that will help this team out?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think maybe that might have been a little bit of the silver lining when Ben was out because it gave, obviously more on-court opportunity to George Hill and it let him play with the starters for a little bit more because I do think, his role is absolutely going to be off the bench running that second unit. But given his experience, his IQ, and his decision-making, I think he's going to end up playing a good chunk of minutes with the starters or at least with, parts of the starting 5 throughout the postseason. And I think, it was expected it was going to take him a couple of games to get his, his feet back under him to get accustomed to the Sixers and their style and everything. But I think over the past few games, you're starting to see exactly what he brings to the floor, which is another good perimeter defender. He's a guy that can, guard a point guard or a shooting guard on the other team and do a good job. But then also on offense, he just, he plays the game at his own pace. He doesn't get sped up. He has a high basketball IQ. He makes good decisions. He can, find his teammates, and he can knock down shots. So I think overall, he's going to be a huge piece for the Sixers moving forward into the postseason. And, I still think we've only seen some of what he's able to do. Moving forward, I think as he continues to get comfortable, we'll see, even more of what he's going to bring to this team.
I want to, do you think that he closes game, like maybe Curry starts and Hill closes? Do you see that scenario?
Yeah, I think it's definitely possible, depending on matchups, but there's not a huge drop off. I mean, he's not Seth Curry, but in terms of shooting, he's a career close to 40% shooter. He's a guy that you can have on the perimeter in the clutch that can, still provide the space you need around your best players while also giving you, a little bit of a better defender on that end of the floor. And also a guy that can initiate the offense, make plays for himself and make plays for others when, in the playoffs, especially in the half court, that's going to be something that's extremely important. And frankly, it's something that the Sixers have been, lacking for the past few seasons. So I do think he's going to be a guy that comes in and, potentially closes games or at least plays a major role in the postseason.
Yeah, I know the one thing, how many minutes? Let me get your thoughts on that. Where is he at playoff-wise minutes? Is he a 28? Less than that? I mean, where do you see him minutes-wise?
Yeah, Mike, I think he's anywhere from mid-20s to 30 minutes a game, depending on the situation. I really think Doc is going to appreciate, his experience, his veteran leadership, and just his savvy out on the court. I think he'll play, large chunks. Obviously, he'll be one of the first guys off the bench with that second unit. But like we were just saying, I think that, in games down the stretch when it's close, that time is going to extend from, he'll be out there with the second unit, and then you'll see some of the starters come trickling back. And I think you'll see him out there with Joel and Ben, and, maybe sometimes he'll take some minutes from Seth. Maybe sometimes he'll take a couple minutes from Danny, depending on, the situation, the game, foul trouble, how guys are shooting, things like that. But, he's a guy that it's not a situation where he's only going to be playing, 8-10 minutes a game. I think he's going to play, a substantial role. And he could be the guy that plays the most minutes for the Sixers off the bench in the postseason.
I know people are probably listening thinking like they acquired, an all-star player here, but Hill, not an all-star, but definitely kind of a glue guy, almost like a somewhat of a version of what Danny Green's been giving you, a veteran presence who kind of does multiple things, nothing great, but everything solid.
Exactly. And when you have, 2 or potentially 3 all-stars, obviously Tobias didn't make the team, but when you have those type of players, you don't necessarily need more all-star caliber guys. You need guys exactly like you said, like Danny Green, like Dwight Howard, like George Hill, that have the experience, that have the IQ, and that can come in and know their role. They're not going to come in and look to do more than what's expected of them or more than, what they can handle. And I think that's something, like I just said with George Hill, that's something that maybe this team lacked a little bit in the past. And I think that's the reason, you're seeing their success this year. They have the great mix of, the all-star talent and the top tier guys. They have some young guys, and then they have those veterans with the playoff experience. And George Hill fits right into that latter group.
Yeah. Michael Kasky-Blumane, CBS Sports, down the stretch they come here. How much do we see, in your opinion, the Sixers stars? We've been seeing all these teams sitting guys out. Do we see Embiid sitting out, or are they going for this 1 seed?
It's going to be a delicate balance, I think, that they have to strike over these last couple of weeks, Mike. They've made it, no secret that they want the 1 seed, and it makes sense this year. That 1 seed could be the difference between having to play both the Bucks and the Nets, or just having to play one or the other in the playoffs, and that's huge. So I think that is going to be the goal. But then at the same time, I think you're going to have to try to find a balance. And last night was a great example. You play your starters, you get the win, you take care of business in the first couple quarters, and then you get them rest on the back end. I think, ideally that's what they're going to have to try to aim for, because they want to stack up these wins. But at the end of the day, for, most contenders, health is, the priority. And I think that's the same with the Sixers. So I wouldn't be shocked to see both Ben and Joel miss another game or two here before the playoffs for, rest purposes.
Give me your thought. I mean, you cover the Sixers obviously a lot. You're there a lot, but you also cover the rest of the league. Give me your thoughts on the rest of this East all of a sudden, Michael. It's kind of got intriguing. I mean, the Knicks won 9 in a row. That finally got snapped. The Hawks have been playing better. Boston's playing better. Even down to like the 10 team Washington, I think, had won 8 in a row.
Yeah, and I think that's, for the Sixers, it's a little bit, I don't want to say alarming, but like you said, this back end of the season, we've seen a lot of teams really step up, and I think there's a lot of teams that you can't afford to overlook. If you're one of these higher seeded teams, getting the first or the second seed doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be an easy route to you to advance. You have a team like the Wizards who, just won 8 straight games. They have, finally Westbrook's healthy. He's playing like his old self. Bradley Beal dropping 30 a night. The Knicks, who just won 9 straight. They have Julius Randle trying to force his way as a late addition into that MVP conversation. Those are teams that are playing their best ball at the right part of the season. They're getting their guys healthy, and they're, the type of team that you just can't overlook. So, for me, it's a situation where I still think in any of those series, the Sixers would obviously be the favorite and would be able to take care of business. But it's also a situation where they can't afford to overlook any of these teams. And, even if they get the 1 seed, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a cakewalk to the conference finals.
How many guys are in Doc Rivers' playoff rotation?
That's obviously a great question, Mike, and the biggest one. And so far, all the indication I've gotten from Doc to me is that I don't know if he plans on squeezing players out of the rotation as much as just their time and their roles are going to be cut. Just last night, he was saying that it's going to be hard for him not to play Tyrese Maxey in the playoff rotation. Obviously a guy like Dwight's going to be in there as the backup center, George Hill, Shake Milton, Matisse for what he brings on the defensive end, and then on the flip side, Korkmaz for what he brings on the offensive end. So I think, to me, it's still a situation where you might see, 10 or 11 guys get action, but it's, a situation where in the regular season, Doc leaves those guys in for long stretches of time, to the point that you see some people on Twitter complaining that he's leaving the bench unit in for too long. And I think the biggest difference is going to be that's not going to be the case. Like, he's still going to stagger these guys and make sure everyone's fresh and get these guys some minutes, but it's not going to be, where you're seeing a rotation of 5 bench guys in for 5-6 minute stretches. I think it's going to be, a much shorter leash for those guys. And it's going to be, based on matchups in terms of who gets minutes on a given night.
All right, Sixers, Hawks tomorrow night. And, of course, you can hear that game here on 97.3 ESPN. Then they'll play the Hawks on Friday night as well. So it's tomorrow against the Hawks, Friday against the Hawks, and then down the stretch in May, it's Spurs, Bulls, Houston, Pelicans, Pistons. So a lot of fluff in there. Pacers, Heat, Magic. So really, by my count, I guess the Spurs and the Heat, after this Hawks, are the only 2 teams left with a winning record. So as Michael wrote over at CBS Sports, very easy schedule the rest of the way. And as you mentioned, they really want to get that number 1 seed. And really, Michael, it's almost like if they're 2 or 3, you almost feel like they're not going to be able to. If they're 1, yeah, I think they can get to the Eastern Conference Finals, maybe to the finals. If they're 2 or 3, I'm not sure that they can beat both Brooklyn and the Bucks in consecutive series.
And I think that's kind of how they're looking at it. Not that they can't do that, but just that the road is made infinitely easier when you don't have to go through both of those guys. Because either any of those 3 teams, you could come out of the East, and I wouldn't be shocked at the end of the day if they were the team in the finals. And obviously, you want to be the team that has to minimize how much you have to play those guys. So I think, that's why that top seed's so important. They know it, and they're going to be gunning for it over these last couple of weeks.
MKB, of course, like all guests appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Michael Kasky-Blomain, CBS Sports, at The Real Mike KB on Twitter. And Sixers Hawks tomorrow night. We'll obviously have that here on 97.3. All right, MKB, good to see you, man.
Thanks, Mike. You too. Talk to you soon.
All right, he'll be back next week here on Inside the Sixers. And, of course, tomorrow, Inside the Sixers, Paul Hudrick is back, and we will check in with the Sixers and the Hawks. Coming up at 4 o'clock. Football at 4. Andrew DiCecco answers your draft questions. Got a draft question for Andrew? Send it now on the video stream or send a text to 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. Hit us up on the text board. Busy day, busy show. John Clayton tonight at 5:25. Phillies lineup is out today. It looks very similar to yesterday. In fact, I think it's exactly the same except for the pitcher. Miller, Hoskins, Harper, Real Muto, Gregorius, Bohm, Herrera, Nick Maton, Zach Eflin. There's your lineup tonight for the Phils. Zach Eflin looking to pick up the dub. Back-to-back Zach. How about that? There's their nicknames. The back-to-back Zach attack. Zach Eflin. They spell it differently, though. Do you know which one spells it with the K and which one goes CH? Neither do I. That's your lineup tonight. I wrote about it this morning at 97.3ESPN.com. I hope you check it out. The Odubel Herrera stuff. We went into it yesterday, but I thought about it a little bit, and after seeing, look, this is the way it looks to me. After seeing 3 center fielders hit 101 over 21 games, the Phillies simply thought it was time to bring up Odubel Herrera. Yesterday, Joe Girardi said, we just felt it was time to give an opportunity to be our center fielder. The team called him up from their alternate site, making it the first time that Herrera has appeared in a major league game since serving an 85-game suspension for domestic violence back in 2019 when he was at an Atlantic City casino. I think it was the Golden Nugget. Girardi said he told him, you're hitting 7th and playing center field. He said he had a smile on his face. Of course he did. Herrera hasn't appeared in the game since being arrested on May 27th, 2019, after allegedly attacking his girlfriend inside the Golden Nugget in Atlantic City. Now, per reports at the time, there were handprint markings on Herrera's girlfriend's neck and scratches on her arms. All the charges against him, including simple assault and knowingly causing bodily injury, were dropped by, I believe it is his now wife. Herrera was in the lineup, hitting 7th, playing center. He looked a lot like the previous 3 teammates. He went 0 for 3 with a strikeout. Now, look, you know and I know, Phillies center fielders were certainly not getting the job done. But doesn't it almost seem as if this was a predetermined move? Roman Quinn got 31 at-bats before the team pulled the plug on his tenure. Mickey Moniak got 25 at-bats. And Adam Hazley sadly left the team for personal reasons and will be away for an undetermined amount of time. Meanwhile, the team said at the conclusion of spring training that Herrera needed more time, which is why he did not break camp with the team, which they instead went with Quinn and Hazley. Girardi said yesterday, our biggest concern when we left spring training is he had not had that many at-bats in the last couple of years. He said, we're concerned about some inconsistencies and not just having a whole lot of playing time. Apparently about 50 at-bats at the alternate site was enough for the team to pull the trigger and feel more comfortable about him being ready to face big league pitching. Girardi said he went and got 50 or 60 at-bats down there, and we feel better about where he's at. I think we all understand that Quinn and Hazley and Moniak and even Scott Kingery were not the answer in center field. But were they really given a fair chance? Did Herrera really do enough and get enough reps at the alternate site to prove he's ready after a 23-month layoff from the game? The Phillies' desperate center field situation forced them to make a desperate move. At the time of the incident in Atlantic City, Herrera was hitting .222 with 1 home run and 16 RBI in 139 pretty pitiful plate appearances. Girardi said he has done what Major League Baseball and the Players Association has asked him to do, what was mutually agreed upon. I don't disagree with that. But if they think bringing Odubel Herrera up and boom, the 2016, 17, or 18 version is just going to appear, I think they're that sadly mistaken. Girardi acknowledged that each of Herrera's new teammates will feel differently about him, but added that he feels pretty good with the situation and that they'll move forward with him as their center fielder. Could it be that the Phillies still owe him $13.8 million this season and the buyouts of his club options for 22 and 23? Likely. Look, Odubel Herrera isn't the answer to this team's center field problems. And if he is, I'm wrong. It just feels like this was a predetermined move, and that's why I don't like it. Just tell us the truth. I feel like, look, quite frankly, he missed out on 21 games, okay? 21 games. If the Phillies are now saying after 50 at-bats in the alternate site that they feel better about him, they should have just started the season with him. And this dog and pony show, which I think looks terrible, quite frankly. I said before, I had 10 predictions for the Phillies season. Some of them are already not coming true. Some of them aren't going to come true. And we can revisit those. Number one, Bryce Harper will have his best season with the Phillies. I don't know that one is projectable at this point, but so far he's hitting .319, 6 homers, 10 RBI with an on-base percentage of .449. So far, I would say he's pacing to have his best season with the Phillies. Alec Boehm will show he's the real deal. That was number 2. Well, Boehm is only hitting .205. So far, not accurate. Although I think Boehm has showed us that he's more than capable of hitting at this level. But he's got to do better. Number 3, incorrect. Scott Kingery will have a bounce-back year. That is not right so far. In fact, it's so off because at the end of it I wrote, expect a 280, 17 homer, 65, 15 stolen base type of year. Whoa, were we off on that one. Number 4, the bullpen will be significantly better. It's significantly better. That doesn't mean it's better. It needs to be even better than the significantly better that it is from last year. Last year, he had an ERA in the 7s. Now it's in the 5s. It needs to be in the 4s, low 4s, or even the upper 3s. Number 5, the best arm in the bullpen will be Connor Brogdon. That's not too far off, although Jose Alvarado has something to say about that. The problem is Alvarado missed some time, has only appeared in 6 games in 5 innings. Brogdon has pitched in 8 games so far in 8 innings. And I would imagine, other than the one bad outing Brogdon had, that most people would agree that he has been their best arm in the bullpen. Number 6, Haseley and Kingery might be the center fielders for now, but Odubel Herrera will replace one or both of them by the All-Star break. Well, I said by the All-Star break, it took 21 games. Think about that. I mean, I knew it was coming. I just thought the Phillies had a little more dignity than this. I was wrong. Number 7, Nola, Wheeler, Eflin will be the top pitching threesome in the NL East. So far, that might be true. Max Fried has struggled in Atlanta. DeGrom's been amazing. Carrasco's been hurt. Scherzer's been great. Strasburg banged up. Corbin, Sixto Sanchez didn't even start with the team. Looks like I might be on the money with that one. Number 8, Hoskins, Segura, Velasquez, or McCutchen will be traded. I think McCutchen, if anybody wanted him, is a possibility. I think Velasquez, if anybody wanted him, is a possibility. Heck, I think Segura, if there's any action out there for him, somebody might want him. He's hurt right now, but he's having a pretty good year. Number 9, Spencer Howard won't win a spot in the rotation, but he will be in the rotation by the end of the season. That's going to happen right again. Howard will be in the rotation probably by the All-Star break. So those were my predictions for the start of the season. I think of them, only one of them is off the mark, and that is Scott Kingery, who still has a chance to prove me wrong that I'm wrong about him bouncing back, if that makes sense. 609-403-0973. Text board wide open. Video stream open for you. Couple questions coming in for Andrew DiCecco. If you want to get a question in for Andrew DiCecco, start posting them now, and I will ask him that. He had the Inside the Birds mock draft on Monday. We'll get his thoughts on that. 609-403-0973. If you have a question for Andrew DiCecco, text or post on the video stream right now. And Andrew DiCecco joins me next for Football at 4. Right here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast and brought to you by Prop Swap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bet and take your profit. Find out how at PropSwap.com. Download the Prop Swap app today. The Inside the Birds guys had their mock draft on Monday in the latest version. Jeff Mosher, Adam Kaplan, and this man, Andrew DiCecco, who joins us now on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline to take a look at the mock draft, your questions, and the NFL draft, which is on Thursday. And you can hear all the draft coverage starting Thursday at 7 on 97.3 ESPN. Andrew, what's going on, man?
Hey, Mike, doing well. Just a couple days out from the draft, so I mean, a lot going on.
We are down to the final hours, I guess you can say, for the NFL draft. And you guys did your mock draft, which we want to get into as well. We have questions from our listeners who want you to answer questions about them. I want to get into a couple quick things. When it comes to the two wide receivers, Devonta Smith and Jalen Waddle, because I guess one or both of those guys could be there at number 12. Something Nick Sirianni said last week kind of sticks out to me, and I should have brought this up earlier as we've been talking, but he mentioned like that X receivers come in all shapes and sizes, and that he's had T.Y. Hilton and this guys. Which of the two, Smith or Waddle, do you think fit the X receiver explanation that he gave more?
I would say Waddle, just from an athletic profile standpoint. I mean, I think Smith can do it, but I also do believe that his size is really going to be a factor. I think he can do it in spurts, but I don't think he can do it. He can play that role consistently. Now, there are ways you can scheme those guys open, as you've seen in the past, but I mean, when I envision an X receiver, I envision someone more along the lines of a Terrace Marshall or what they thought they were getting in J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. You need someone to kind of fill that Alshon role, and I don't know that those guys quite fit the bill.
So if Smith, Waddle, or Horn are on the board and they need an X receiver, that would be more likely than they go with Horn, because you're saying neither one of those guys fits what he kind of said the criteria for an X receiver might be.
Yeah, I mean, and I also, in my opinion, would think that J.C. Horn, you'd be getting the top corner in the draft at 12, which I think is fantastic value. This is a rich receiver draft, much like it is a very deep cornerback draft. But I mean, you can get the cream of the crop at 12. And you can also get, a starting caliber player at 37, 70, and so on. So, I mean, I think that value would be, too good to pass up.
All right, get some questions on this as we're talking wide receivers. Frank wants to know, Andrew, would you be happy with Terrence Marshall or Rashad Bateman in round 2? Also, your thoughts on Elijah Moore, the wideout from Mississippi.
Well, I mean, Eagles fans should be pleased if they land a Bateman or a Marshall at 37, because both players are going to be they offer starter upside, which you would expect at the top of round 2. But I also do believe that they would add another dimension to the Eagles offense, which they don't currently have, as far as a red zone perimeter receiver that can go up and get the football, build that rapport with Jalen Hurts, and become, a force in the red zone. And I mean, when you're looking at that, I think both players really embody that. And I think someone who's emerging late here is Terrace Marshall. So, I mean, there's a chance that he sneaks into the first round. It all depends on what teams like, because going into the pre-draft process, Bateman was the guy that was billed over him. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out.
Here's an interesting scenario here that Jalen brings up. He says, I think it would be a steal if the Eagles get Horn and Farley, knowing injury history is much different than Sidney Jones. But if he hits, Eagles corners could be incredible for 5 years. Is that worth the risk? And I guess the question would be, where do you kind of envision Caleb Farley going? I mean, if you guys did your mock draft, where do you see Farley landing? Or is it possible that the Eagles, see him slipping and get back into that Caleb Farley game?
Yeah, this is something that we discussed. We touched on a little bit in our mock draft, and I kind of see him going at the end of the first. I don't know that he tumbles out of the first entirely, but I mean, it's going to be interesting that the Tampa Bay Bucks sitting there at the end when their window, they might want to maximize their window. They can go with a running back, like a luxury pick, like a Travis Etienne, or they could also go and add to their defensive group and add a corner, which would be fantastic value in Caleb Farley. That's a team that I could see him going to because, yeah, he might not be ready to go right away, but they also have a decent amount of corners there. But I think that would be a luxury pick there. I don't know if he's a guy that's a second contract guy, which is something that Adam brought up. I mean, we don't know that. I mean, the injury history is there, but I think that, you can get a lot of mileage out of him, so to speak, in that first contract. I think he's going to be a good player. I just don't know if he's going to be around for a long time.
Andrew DiCecco, football at 4. All right, so we got a lot of questions kind of pouring in here. Elliot wants to know, Andrew, who do you see starting in the slot this year? If we move Rigger to the slot, who do you start alongside him? That's an interesting one because Greg Ward has handled that position the last 2 years.
Yeah, well, right now it's going to have to be. I mean, if you put Rager in the slot, you have to identify an X receiver. I mean, they simply don't have that. You can't go into the season thinking that Travis Fulgham and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside are going to fill those roles. And do I think that Travis Fulgham should be completely written out of the offense? No, not at all. That 4-game sample size, that just doesn't happen by accident. He's an NFL player. I just don't know if he's a starting caliber receiver, so you can't go into the season thinking that. So you have to identify an X receiver. And it's certainly, if Rager moves to the slot, I mean, I don't know what you do with Greg Ward because he can't play on the outside.
Yeah, Ward's seemingly a slot guy, and you say Rager, if they move him inside, you're right. I mean, my question for you, Andrew, off of that is, like, do you think that Sirianni can get something from J.J. Arcega-Whiteside?
Well, and I mean,
like, have you written Arcega-Whiteside off as a bust, or hey, there's a new coach who's got a wide receiver background? Like, is there something in him that Peterson and his staff couldn't get out?
I mean, personally, I don't think he can play. I wasn't very high on him coming out of the draft. I didn't think he ran really well. I don't think he was really challenged. So you didn't really get to see what he could do if he was facing a physical corner. He dominated those Pac-12 corners. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think that he deserves another look. I mean, they invested a second-round pick. They didn't, but I mean, the Eagles did. And, you have the wide receivers coaching, pedigree there with Sirianni, Patullo, and Aaron Moorhead. So let's see what he can do with this summer with Aaron Moorhead, another year with Aaron Moorhead, and see if you can get something out of him. I just don't see it.
Right. Now, he was drafted to replace – he was billed as the replacement to Jeffrey. Has he ever got the chance to fulfill that role, or have they been using him in the wrong – in other words – Nelson Aguilar wasn't awful when he played the slot. He had problems when they moved him all over the place. But in 2017, when he was strictly a slot man, is when he excelled. Could Arcega-Whiteside perform if used in the right manner? He was billed as the replacement for Alshon.
Well, I also think he needs to show on the practice field and in the meeting room that he deserves to be out there. There's another layer to this that we're not exactly privy to. And I think that a lot of these limited opportunities that he's getting is, it's taking place on the practice field, and more so what they're not seeing out of him. The details of the route running, just the ability to go up and come up with those contested catches, which that was supposed to be his calling card coming out of Stanford. And when you're getting taken out, you're not even involved in, red zone situations and jump ball situations. You're on the sideline. Well, that's what you were drafted to do. And instead you have guys like Greg Ward that are on those situations. That's very telling to me. And I mean, maybe they can get something out of him. They can get him to play above the rim, so to speak. But I mean, after 2 seasons, I don't know that I've seen anything that warrants me being encouraged by what I've seen.
All right, another question for Andrew. Andrew, if the Eagles trade back, which this gentleman says is starting to feel more likely, who is a player they may draft that no one is talking about?
Well, I mean, I think if they trade back, I think someone like a Kwity Paye would certainly be in play here, but I mean, he's been talked about. I'm not necessarily sure. I mean, they could also trade back and get a guy like Greg Newsome, the corner who I actually had mocked going to the Arizona Cardinals at 16. He's going to go anywhere from that 15 to 20 range, I would say, and he'd be a guy that no one's really talking about, but he's in that next tier of corners that he's got that length and size that Nick Sirianni and Jonathan Gannon have experience being around with the Indianapolis Colts. So I mean, he would kind of slot right in there.
Yeah, that's an interesting question because everyone's talking about Patrick Surtain, Caleb Farley, and J.C. Horn. Who's the next group of guys? So if they don't take one at 12 or if they trade back, who are some of the other corners? You just mentioned Newsome. Who are some of the other corners that you have your eye on?
Greg Newsome, Asante Samuel Jr., Eric Stokes. That's sort of that next tier for me. Tyson Campbell he's right there as well. I don't think he's as technically sound as Eric Stokes. They're talking about the other Georgia corner, of course. I do think he has a high upside. So, I mean, those are the guys that are going to, trickle. They kind of file in after the premier guys.
All right. If they pass on, they have a first pick, which is 12, second pick, 37. If they wait it to round 3, advisable?
For a corner?
Yes.
I would probably. I mean, there's a little bit of a drop off there in talent. I mean, I think that I would take advantage of the picks that you have and really get this right and not try to. Don't bank on the fact that this is a deep draft class and then you get a little too complacent and all of a sudden you miss out on this top end talent. I think that they need to capitalize when they have the opportunity, and they have a golden opportunity in all likelihood at 12 and certainly at 37.
Yeah. So you're saying if you want a corner, you need to get one in the first 2 rounds. That's the way to go.
Yeah, because in the Eagles situation, they don't have that opportunity to take a guy and let him sit on the sideline. They have holes everywhere, especially at corner. Opposite Darius Slay, the group that they have to work with is abysmal. So you need to get a plug and play guy there and really start to rectify the defensive backfield.
Yep. If I said yesterday, I want to get your opinion on this, Andrew. They're at 12. If they were to move up, there has been some talk that the guy they would move up for is Pitts. Is there a guy that you would say, if they're going to move up, this is who it has to be for?
I would say Pitts or even a Jamar Chase. Yeah. I think that Jamar Chase can be that good. You heard Jeff Mosher on the Monday podcast. He spoke about Jamar Chase and his upside, and I tend to agree there. I mean, those are those two blue chip players that you're going to move up for. They're going to be difference makers on your offense. They offer big play ability and can completely transform that. Those are the 2 guys that you're going to make a move for, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree there that if they were to move up for somebody, Pitts would be number 1 on my list. I feel like this offense and just, his style and what he brings to the league is going to be very intriguing. I would take a shot if I were to move up. Not that I wouldn't on Chase, but wide receivers tend to have a little bit more bust factor, I guess. No?
Yeah. And the fact that he's not just a tight end, he's the ultimate weapon, I would say. And you could use him at receiver. You can use him at tight end. You could really do anything you want with him. He's that athletic, and he has that ability to work all 3 levels of the field and create mismatches no matter where he goes. I mean, how do you cover the guy? He's going to be too physical for safeties, too fast for corners, and he's just and too fast for linebackers. I mean, he really is the ultimate weapon. So he's the guy. I agree with you there. He'd be the guy that I would move up for if the Eagles choose to go that route.
Yeah. All right. Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. If you have a question for Andrew, there's a lot of questions that we still haven't gotten to here. Here's one from Jeff. He wants to know Jalen Phillips, thoughts on getting him in that first round. Now, would you say trade back in that situation if Phillips, or would you take him at 12?
Yep. He would be another trade back candidate. And when you talk about the pass rushers in this class, this is a great question, by the way. There isn't a bona fide top guy. It all depends on who you like, because I've seen Kwity Paye. I mean, early in the draft process, Gregory Rousseau was considered the top guy, the surefire first one to come off the board. And then there's also Jason Elway from Penn State, who Greg Cosell loves. I really like his athleticism and his bend. And then you got Jalen Phillips, who, had it not been for all these concussions and medical red flags, he's a guy that's going to probably, you can make a case that he would be the first defensive end off the board. But again, can you afford to roll the dice and take a gamble on a player with this kind of with these medical red flags? I think you can. I mean, you could trade back for him and everything, but I mean, is he going to be a second contract player? These are what you have to kind of weigh. These are factors you have to weigh when you're taking this kind of a gamble.
All right, this one is from Jeff. He says, Jeff, give me a couple linebackers that you would like to see them target at 37.
At 37, I would say Baron Browning. Nick Bolton would be another guy that would fit. He's not necessarily doesn't have the length or anything like that, but I do think that he has the coverage acumen, which is what you really need to succeed at the next level at the linebacker position. I also like Jabril Cox from LSU. Again, I think 37, as I said on your show last week, I think 37 is a little early for Jabril Cox. He'd be a trade back scenario type of player. He's going to go anywhere from between 37 and 70, right around that 50 range, I would say would be a good spot for him. So those are just a few guys that I think are going to be difference makers right out of the gate.
Getting Eric Wilson, does that lessen the necessity for a linebacker in round 2? Or I mean, I know Wilson's just a 1-year guy. Alex Singleton is still here. TJ Edwards is still here. But signing Wilson, does that say, you know what, maybe we can get a linebacker in round 3 now?
I think that would be a mistake if they think that way. And so I don't necessarily think that impacts it one way or the other, Mike. And the reason being is the Eagles have gotten by with these Band-Aids or free agent signings, whether it was Nigel Bradham, LJ Ford, and now Eric Wilson. I mean, they need to draft. They need to identify a homegrown talent that they can grow with. They thought it was going to be Nathan Gary. They still think it's going to be Davion Taylor. I still have my doubts about that. But again, just like with corner, you have to, if you have the opportunity to add a difference maker there, and they're going to at 37, you got to do it. I mean, you have to add some building blocks on defense, and that'd be a great place to start with adding a Baron Browning or something, a player of that mold. So that's the way I would go.
I know that everybody is like if Micah Parsons was at 12, which I don't think he would be, but would he be in play?
I think that he would have to be. And like you and I talked about, Mike, I think that it's not necessarily fair to say that the Eagles aren't going to value the linebacker position, because that was the previous regime. This is an entirely new thought process, a whole new creative group here that, who knows, Jonathan Gannon may say, hey, look, this is the type of player that I need to run my defense. Yeah. And he's a guy that I think is going to be an all-pro player and a difference maker. You have to bring those. You have to swing the bat on a player like that. Right. He has freakish athleticism, and he's going to have a long career and be one of the top defensive players that come out of this draft.
That might be, Andrew, the most pick. If the Eagles pick Parsons at 12, if he's there, that especially, I mean, if they traded up to get him too. I mean, if they say, look, we think the Giants might take him, we're going to go up to 9 to go get him. I don't see that happening. But if they took a linebacker, Micah Parsons at 12, that might be the biggest scenario.
Oh, absolutely. And I kind of equate Micah Parsons to he's the defensive version of Kyle Pitts, and that when you're drafting him, I mean, the linebacker position in itself isn't as flashy as some of the other ways that they could go, but you look at all the things that he can do and the value that he can provide. I mean, that's going to pay immediate dividends.
All right, we will look at your mock draft from Monday's Inside the Birds when you're back on Thursday. We'll kind of run through that and then see how it matches up with Thursday's draft. And, of course, Andrew DiCecco back on Thursday for a draft preview, the final one before the pick is made, and we'll get Andrew's selection, who he thinks the Eagles will go with on Thursday's show. And he, like all guys, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Andrew DiCecco, everybody, at A DiCecco NFL. Andrew, thanks, man.
Yeah, man. Looking forward to talking to you on Thursday.
Yeah, that should be good. We'll go through that mock draft on Thursday, see what he thinks, and see what he thinks happens. And he, like all guys, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. And when we come back, oh, boy, I got a couple draft thoughts I want to get out there. Who have been the best drafting teams and the worst drafting teams over the last 10 years? You might be surprised. Stick around for that. A prop swap is doing something different. And if you're a prop swapper, you know what I'm talking about. Go to PropSwap.com right now and type in the search bar Eagles. All right? They got great Eagles tickets right now. To draft Jalen Waddle, they have a ticket at 4-1. You can bid on that ticket right now. You can bid on a ticket to draft Devonta Smith. If you have a ticket that you want to sell, who do you think they're going to draft? You could post that right now at PropSwap.com. There's one on there right now. Odds of 2-1 that the Eagles draft J.C. Horn. $55 to collect $190. The bid right now is $37. You can get that ticket right now at PropSwap.com. And you can put in the search bar your favorite team and find out great prop swaps for the NFL draft. It's PropSwap.com and the free Prop Swap app. Check them out today. All right, coming up in about 13 minutes from now, Jeff Kerr from CBS Sports, as we'll get his take on the NFC East. What could happen inside the NFC East on draft day? John Clayton tonight as well. Over on the video stream, Mike, your BS meter is spot on. NFL Network is reporting the Jaguars have narrowed down focus for the first overall pick to Lawrence, Wilson, and Fields. This is honestly embarrassing. Yeah, I mean, anybody who got that information and then had to stick their tail between their legs and actually report it, come on, you're better than that. You just don't report that. They've narrowed it down to Lawrence, Wilson, and Fields. I mean, come on. Your ass itches on that. Jesus. Come on. But that's what happens now. Now you're getting the kooky stuff. Hey, yeah, we might draft Fields at number 1. Yeah, and we like Pitts too. Not happening. This is the BS time. This is that time of the year. This is what's happening. You're getting all sorts of crazy stuff. Jalen's watching. Mike, I watched more J.C. Horn tape yesterday, not highlights. Dude is incredible. Battles, recovers when he makes mistakes. Huge upside. Would be nice to have real corners for once. If you watch J.C. Horn, it'd be hard-pressed. Now, watch him in a game, not highlights, like you just said there. It'd be hard-pressed for me to see somebody say, I don't like this man, this kid, this player. You just wouldn't. He battles. He's strong, physical. You remember the game? It's a very well-remembered game in Philadelphia Eagles lore. It was the game that was referred to as, when Ricky Manning Jr., the ragdoll, he just threw the Eagles receivers around like a ragdoll. Ricky Manning Jr. was 5'9". Small guy, but he just was a physical guy, got up on the line and just absolutely, dominated at point of attack. The Eagles have not had that player who just gets up and dominates you at the line of scrimmage. If you want a guy that could just absolutely physically dominate you at the line of scrimmage, there's J.C. Horn. You would get that guy finally. You would be hard-pressed to tell me you have a better player that you can get at number 12 than J.C. Horn. All right, who are the best and who are the worst drafting teams in the NFL at selecting first-round picks since 2010? And I know all of you will say it's got to be Howie Roseman. He's got to be the worst. Well, maybe you're right. Let's find out. These are the best and worst drafting teams in the NFL since 2010. It's a 10-year sample size. And this is why sometimes I think we blow out of proportion Roseman's impact on this team and why it's in the situation that they're in. And you might be having steam come out of your ears right now. But I'm here to tell you, these are the best drafting teams in the league the last 10 years. Number 1, the Houston Texans. Huh? What? They have the most hits in the first round the last 10 years. Deshaun Watson, DeAndre Hopkins, J.J. Watt, Kareem Jackson, Will Fuller, Jadeveon Clowney. That is a pretty good group of guys. You know what they won? Diddly, poo, nothing. The second best drafting team in the last 10 years, Carolina Panthers. Cam Newton, DJ Moore, Luke Kuechly, Christian McCaffrey. Carolina Panthers have been horrible. In the last decade, they have drafted an MVP, a future Hall of Fame linebacker, and probably one of the best running backs in terms of football war in a long time. The third best drafting team in the last 10 years, Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen, Tre'Davious White, Stephon Gilmore. They have finally started to turn it around a little bit. They have been one of the worst teams in football leading up to the last 10 years. The number 4 best drafting team in the last 10 years is the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson, Marlon Humphrey, Jimmy Smith helped them out there. Now, they also got guys like Marquise Hollywood Brown, C.J. Mosley, Ronnie Stanley, the offensive tackle. The 5th best drafting team in the last 10 years is the Indianapolis Colts. Andrew Luck, Quentin Nelson. They made a lot of mistakes, too. But that kind of gives you an indication. The teams that you have in your mind that are the best drafting teams, and they're always the best drafters, not the case. Heck, the Houston Texans fired their GM because he was so inept. The Indianapolis Colts had Ryan Grigson as their GM for a while. They had to get rid of him because he was so bad. Nobody could tell me who the Carolina Panthers. Oh, wait, it was Dave Gettleman. We're talking about a 10-year span here. Honorable mention. Number 6 was Dallas, followed by Kansas City, Tennessee, the Chargers, and the Packers. That is your top 10 best drafting teams over the last 10 years. Now, I haven't seen the bottom 10. Philadelphia might be on this list. I have no idea. I'm about to click it open right now. Number 28, the Chicago Bears. Not a surprise. Number 29, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Best pick, Jalen Ramsey. A lot of misses. Blaine Gabbert, Luke Jokel, Tyson Alualu. Dante Fowler was a total busteroni. Number 30 of the worst drafting teams. How about this? Kind of a surprise. The Seattle Seahawks are one of the worst drafting teams. Well, I bet you most people wouldn't have guessed that. They're constantly a good team. They won a Super Bowl. They've been in a Super Bowl. And they're also one of the worst drafting teams in the NFL. Number 31, the Detroit Lions. And the worst drafting team in the league is the Las Vegas Raiders. So there you go. There's your list of the worst. Now, the honorable mentions. San Francisco, Miami, the Cardinals, Washington, and the Jets. They are the worst. It does say this. The Eagles stand out as a team that has far more success in the first half of the last 10 years compared to the back half of the last 10 years. So there's something. The first half from 2010 to 2015, they did okay, I guess you could say. And then from 2015 to 2020, not as good.
You know what the biggest difference was between the first 5 years and the last 5 years was?
Where they were drafting?
No, who was there and who wasn't. Notice how Joe Douglas wasn't there for the first 5 years, the last 10 years, then Joe Douglas was here.
Well, Roseman was there for all of them.
But Joe Douglas wasn't.
Yeah.
Joe Douglas is supposed to be the guy who's gathering the draft board. He's supposed to be compiling the players.
He's on the clock. There's no question about it.
He's the one supposed to be suggesting him to hire Roseman. All of a sudden, the football guy gets here, and you have bad picks like Donnell Pumphrey.
All right, when we come back, we're going to go inside the NFC East. Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports. He'll be on all week. We're going to go inside the NFC East. Coming up next, here on the Sports Bash. Don't go away. John Clayton, 525. All right, Jeff Kerr's back, CBS Sports. We're going to look inside the NFC East and kind of get inside the minds of Dallas, New York, Washington, Philly, obviously, here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, and the free mobile app. And Jeff, of course, CBS Sports NFL writer. He'll be on all week here as we kind of try to do. We'll have the draft coverage today, tomorrow, Thursday, recap on Friday, try to get it all out here for you here on the Sports Bash. All right, Jeff, welcome back, man.
Hey, Mike, how's it going?
Oh, man. All right. We got 2 days left of this, but let's kind of jump inside the NFC East. It's very interesting here because I did a show in Dallas today, and I was talking about how, and they agreed, like Dallas, New York, Philly, boom, boom, boom. This could really be one of the storylines of this draft. Those three trying to jockey around each other. So let's start with Dallas at 10. If nothing happens and 10, they stay, Patrick Surtain, their pick, right? Or do they go J.C. Horn, or they really buck the system and go with another skill player?
I'll tell you what, if I'm Dallas, this is what I'm doing. If Patrick Surtain is there, I think I take him no matter what. I mean, now Dallas might need a linebacker after Sean Lee decided, hey, you know what? I'm not going to play football anymore because you don't know about the health of Leighton Vander Esch. You don't know what they got in Jalen Smith right now. So Micah Parsons could be an option for them. But honestly, they need a cornerback more than anything. I think Patrick Surtain, at least in my opinion, is going to be the best cornerback in this draft class. That's not a knock against J.C. Horn. J.C. Horn might have more potential there, but I just don't see them picking J.C. Horn at 10 when you got Patrick Surtain, if he's there, sitting on the board. Now, if Kyle Pitts is there, they're going to have a huge, huge, huge dilemma because Jerry is in love with Kyle Pitts, as we all know, and I have a feeling Jerry would take him if he was there at 10. Maybe that's why the Eagles would want to jump up ahead of them, but Patrick Surtain will be their pick. So
you mentioned it. Would Micah Parsons be in play? You know, you mentioned that the linebacking, Lee Vander Esch has the neck issue. I think Smith hasn't been as impactful as they hoped when they got him a couple of years ago. You know, they got him in the second round because of the injury. So would Parsons be in play for them?
You know, that's the thing. And this is what I got to look at when you look at the Cowboys here. What player can make the biggest impact on their roster? And if you're looking – how can I say this hypothetically here? If you're looking at the biggest impact for your defense, it's Micah Parsons. He can rush the passer. He's better in coverage than most people say he is. He's pretty much the do-it-all for you, Dolly. So if you want to get a player that's going to make that instant impact right away for them, you have to at least consider Micah Parsons. Now, here's the thing. If Denver doesn't take him at 9, that's where it gets interesting because I think the Cowboys might have to pick the best defensive player in this draft. They may pick the first defensive player in this draft. We've never had a draft where we've had 7 straight offensive or defensive players taken to start the draft. We might go 9 this year because of the quarterback. So yeah, I think this draft falls into Dallas's hands, even if the Eagles or Giants or anybody else would jump them.
Yeah, 1999, Tim Couch, you tweeted this out earlier, by the way, so hat tip to Jeff Kerr at Jeff Kerr CBS. Couch, McNabb, Achilles Smith. Now, this is back when running backs were in vogue. Edger and James, Ricky Williams, Torrey Holt. Who was the first defensive player drafted in that draft? Do you remember?
Champ Bailey went to the Hall of Fame.
Say it again?
It was Champ Bailey. Champ Bailey went.
Okay, you broke up a little bit there. Champ Bailey,
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So, number 7, you're saying in this draft, it could be number 10, the first defensive player.
It could be. If you look at the quarterbacks, I mean, let's think about it, Mike. So we know the top 3 are going to be quarterbacks. Kyle Pitts is going to get selected somewhere in there, right? Penei Sewell, Jamar Chase. So that's 6. And we're not even taking into account Mac Jones, Trey Lance. There's 8. So we got to start thinking here, all right, you know, when is the first defensive player going to get taken? Is it going to be Micah Parsons? Is it going to be Patrick Surtain? Is it going to be J.C. Horn? Is it going to be I can never say his name. Pay from Michigan. I can never say his name. I better get used to it because that's probably who the Eagles are going to draft.
Right.
Oh, yeah, at least that's what we're hearing anyway. So again, you know, this is going to be a very interesting draft of who gets taken where. And again, I think we're going to see 2 things in this draft. I think we're going to see quarterbacks go, and I think we're going to see offensive linemen go because a lot of these teams that have franchise quarterbacks do not have franchise offensive tackles.
Offensive line play in this league is so bad. I agree with that. All right. So Dallas, we feel corner, possible Micah Parsons linebacker, or they get giddy and take a skill position player. Right?
I think all depends who's there, honestly. I really do. I think the Cowboys will have their picking of Devonta Smith and Jalen Waddle, but here's the issue there. They don't need that. They have 3 receivers.
They took CeeDee Lamb last year.
Yeah, exactly. They took CeeDee Lamb, so they're out. So if you're the Eagles, you're not even worried about that. Now, Kyle Pitts, yes, they do need a tight end. I personally, they could go offensive line too. You never know because their offensive line, as good as it was a couple of years ago, a lot of those guys are beat up. So I'm starting to think to myself, maybe they take a chance on the Rashad Slater. Who knows? But I just think it's so hard for them to just ignore the defense right now. Again, I think it's going to be Surtain no matter what. It just seems like a perfect match for them. Patrick Surtain, the second, and the Dallas Cowboys. I almost said junior there, but he's not a junior.
All right, Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports. We're looking at the NFC East. Number 11, the New York Giants. A lot of interesting ways they can go here. You might say the biggest problem they have is at quarterback at 11.
Did they take
What's that?
Did they take one?
I was going to say, what's in play for them, and is quarterback in play if one's there at 11?
Well, I know one thing the Giants won't do, and I'll be shocked if they would do it because Dave Gettleman has never done this. Traded down. He does not believe in trading down. So I don't think that'll happen. I think there are plenty of options available. I think they're going to try to load up that offense as much as they can, as much as they can, let me mind you, for Daniel Jones because they want to see if this guy is actually a thing. Just like how I thought the Jacksonville Jaguars were going to do the same thing for Gardner Minshew last year to see if he was a thing, and they passed on Jerry Jeudy. They passed on all those guys. So what I think is going to happen is Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle's on the board. I think they might end up taking one of them. But again, if Micah Parsons is there at 11, perfect fit, Patrick Graham's scheme, I think ultimately they would take the best defensive player. I think this is where we start seeing the run of defensive players because Surtain's going to be off the board and the Giants are going to be like, whoa, we have a chance to get Micah Parsons here. So I think they do go get Micah Parsons. But if not, I do see them getting a receiver, probably Devonta Smith for Jalen Waddle. I'll go Devonta Smith. I think that's who they go with. If they go off.
You don't think they would be in the defensive game if Micah Parsons fell there or even in the J.C. Horn game?
Well, if Micah Parsons is there, they take him. If he's not there, say Denver takes him at 9, or they, whoever trades up or down, I say they'll go offense. But Micah Parsons is there. That's the pick.
And like offensive line, for me, I think offensive line has to be their top priority. I mean, you're going to get Saquon Barkley back. Their receivers, they don't have like that A+ number 1 like they don't have Odell Beckham anymore, but Slayton's, pretty good. He's way out.
He's good too. They have good receivers there. And Evan Ingram, I know he made the Pro Bowl last year. I mock it because he's not really that good of a tight end, but he's better than most tight ends in this league. I would say he's a top 15 tight end.
Very athletic, but their offensive line has been a huge issue for them. I mean, they went and got Hernandez a couple of years ago at guard, nice player there, but their tackles are still, less than adequate.
Yeah, that's the problem too. The Giants just can't develop offensive linemen. So Rashad Slater could be a very intriguing prospect for them. One, who knows what they have in Andrew Thomas. I thought he was a really good pick for them last year, and he just didn't develop the way they should. He got better towards the second half of the year. But again, who was the right tackle they have there? It's not trying to think of the guy's name, the third round pick. Losing my train of thought of Giants offensive lineman, but he was actually better than Andrew Thomas last year. So they could go there. Rashad Slater could obviously play guard. Christian Darrisaw, who my colleague Chris Passo likes. God, I'm losing my train of thought here. Yeah,
Nate Soldier, by the way, they got coming back, right?
Yeah, they do have him coming back too. So that's the thing with the Giants. They could beef up on the offensive line again. That'd be fine if David Gettleman goes that route. But I don't know. I just feel like
you mentioned it. They took Thomas with the 4th pick last year, right? He was the 4th.
Yeah. And a lot of people thought they reached. I thought that was the best pick. I really liked Andrew Thomas coming out of college. I still think he has a lot of potential, but he just struggled in the first half of last year. Got a little bit better as the second half went on. And again, maybe that was because there was no OTAs. There was no really a variant of training camp and no preseason. So I think he'll be a lot better. But again, if Rashad Slater's there, it's very tempting, especially since he can slide in the guard. He's a day 1 guard.
All right. If you have Andrew Thomas coming back as a first-round pick, number 4 overall, and then Nate Solder, who opted out because of COVID last year. So you're going to have your 2 tackles coming back. Now you have Will Hernandez. If you get Rashawn Slater, you could play him at that right guard spot. And then if Thomas is a bust, you can move him over to tackle.
Well, that's the other thing, too. Yeah, and same with Will Hernandez. Like, he can play right guard. He doesn't have to play left guard. He's a better fit at left guard. But, yeah, they're going to have options here with these guys. So, again, if the Giants really want to win, if they really want to protect Daniel Jones, they probably go draft an offensive lineman. So, you draft a Rashad, so you're going to have Christian Darrisaw available. You're going to have these 2 available for you at number 11. Who knows how this draft board plays out? Maybe Penei Sewell is available for. I doubt it, though. I don't think he goes past the Dolphins. After what I heard today and what the Dolphins did with Eric Flowers, it would not surprise me at all if they drafted Penei Sewell, especially if Jamar Chase is in there at 6.
All right, let's go to the football team at 19. They made a trade today, Eric Flowers to Washington. He's been a big bust. I can't imagine that they're trying to say, hey, he's a guy. I mean, they get him and a pick for the from the Dolphins. They exchange like 6-round picks, it looks like, to get Eric Flowers. I mean, I can't understand how this guy still has a job. But the football team is very interesting because they got Fitzpatrick. They need a quarterback for the long term, but Fitzpatrick, I would imagine they're okay with right now. Their defense is beef, so they don't really need maybe a corner on the defensive side of the ball, but what direction do they really need? I mean, their line they have a pretty decent line. They need skill.
They do. And look, they have Terry McLaurin, but that's about it. They really don't have much there. I think Washington
fired.
Yeah, you're right. And I think Washington is one of those teams where if a receiver falls to them, again, I don't think one of the big 3 will, but they're going to have their pickings of a Terrence Marshall, of Rashad Bateman, a Kadarius Toney, and that might be a little too high for him. They could trade back, but they need a quarterback too. Ryan Fitzpatrick's not their long-term answer. He's a 1-year answer. They don't have anybody. So maybe if one of these quarterbacks falls to, say, 12, I don't think he'll trade the Eagles, but 13, 14, I think Washington makes a move up there. Right now, like you said, Mike, their offensive line isn't terrible. Eric Flowers is going to compete for that left guard job, and he actually played his best when he was in Washington as a guard. So they need a guard because they have Brandon Sharif. They have Morgan Moses still there. They did miss not having Trent Williams last year, but again, they haven't had Trent Williams in a couple years, if you really want to look at the gist of it. So, yeah, maybe they go after a guard/tackle, like maybe Darrisaw falls right to them. But I could see them being the team that trades up if one of these quarterbacks slips past 10. Because here's the only issue with them, though. 10's Dallas, 11's the Giants, 12's the Eagles. Who's going to help them? Which one of those 3 teams are actually going to help Washington play them? Say it's Mac Jones, Trey Lance. You really going to let play you this year? I don't think so.
Should be interesting. There's a look at the NFC East. Jeff will be back tomorrow. We'll do more on the draft. And, of course, Thursday, Friday will be draft day, and then we'll recap it all. We're going to be doing more football stuff in the offseason, so look out for more info from us at Jeff Kerr CBS on Twitter. Covers the league nationally with a little local spin here with the Eagles, the NFC East. We're going to do a lot more NFC East-focused stuff throughout the offseason and in-season as well with Jeff here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. And don't forget, download the free mobile app or watch the show live. There he is, Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports. See you, man.
See you, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man. And Jeff back the rest of the week as we do a little extra draft preparation and coverage. John Clayton will join us tonight, as will the PT. It's a Tuesday, which means it's a Tuesday with Thompson. The PT's in the house. We got everything in play. Sixers, Eagles, draft, Flyers, Phillies. Yeah, Odubel Herrera is back in the lineup tonight. I would imagine he's going to be in the lineup every single night. PT's thoughts on that. You know, I was listening to the PT and Billy Schweim in the locker room this Sunday. I got a little something for the PT on that as he joins me for Tuesday with Thompson. Coming up next right here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. And don't forget, watch the show live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Search 973 ESPN. All right, Tuesday with Thompson. The PT's here. It is the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. I'm Mike Gill, taking you till the top of the hour. Game night tonight. Josh has a good one. Andy McNamara and our guy Kevin Durso is in the house as the Flyers kind of finishing out the slate. Pete Thompson's here, and he, like August, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline, or not appeared. He is appearing. He is actually here.
All right, I'm over already.
If you're watching the show live, you can see PT on the live video stream, which you should all be watching if you have the chance. Even if you're in your car, put us on your phone and just don't get in an accident. Hi, Peter.
Right, just a glance down occasionally, listen a little, watch a little. Yeah, how you doing, Mike? Happy Tuesday.
I have YouTube TV, right?
Okay.
I have the app on my phone that I can watch TV on my phone. When I'm in the car, I put the game video on and put it through my Bluetooth.
Yeah, no, I mean, and when we were at the Phillies game against NOLA the other day, there was a play in the field where the ball hit the guy in the foot, and that was the end of the inning. And you couldn't really see that from your seats. And I quickly hit the button on the phone, and there was the replay. And my father and some other people that were near me were fascinated that I was able to get video replay that quickly. That used to be an age-old problem, right? Unless you were in a luxury box or somewhere that had a television, you wouldn't be able to see a replay of anything. And so in this day and age,
my question is, if you're in the car, would you go TV broadcast on through, or do you just go radio broadcast?
I like the traditional radio broadcast. I cannot tell a lie. I mean, because the radio people are more tuned to paint the pictures. You always say it, radio's theater of the mind. But who loved TV in the car? The first person that I ever saw that had TV in the car and definitely was watching the TV more than he was watching the road? That would be Gary Papa. Gary loved gadgets. I mean, he would watch Letterman and stuff. He would watch the late night shows after we left Action News.
How was he watching TV in his car back then?
Back then, he had a setup. He had a hookup, where it was basically he had it wired in to watch it, like to pull it off over the air, just like you'd pull a TV channel in off of an antenna. He had it set up in his car to be able to watch it back then. And I'm talking, this is like the late. This was the 90s. This was like 98, 99, somewhere in there.
Had to be back in the 90s. I'm thinking, I mean, you remember like those old cell phones? My mother had a cell phone in her car when I was in high school. And the thing, I mean, if you're watching on the video, it looked like a car battery that was sitting like in the middle of the car. It didn't work. So it wasn't like, ooh, fancy, you have a cell phone. It didn't work. It just was like this huge cell phone that was in the car that didn't really do anything.
Yeah, I mean, the cell phones, did you ever use the bag phones that you plugged into the cigarette lighter? And that's a concept that doesn't exist in a lot of cars either, too. Who's going to smoke in their car still, right? A cigarette lighter, what's that?
Does the cigarette lighter still exist? Do they still include that with the car?
I think so, but they're hidden. No. The port for it and the output of it, the amperes or whatever, the electric that comes through it exists. But I don't think anybody actually is pushing that button in and lighting up their torch there. I don't think they're lighting up there.
Push the cigarette lighter in, then it was ready. It would pop out, and then you would have like this, red lit thing, and you'd suck that cigarette and light that baby up till the cherry got a little red.
Those coils got really hot. I mean, what's harder to find, the actual cigarette lighter in the car that you push in, or the cigarette machines that you used to pull the handle on? And I know where one of those may still be.
Man, those things, unbelievable. Good pulls by you. All right, couple things. I want to start and get your NFL draft Thursday. You will be on Happy Hour Friday, so we'll get the reaction. But give me, in your mind, the scenarios that you see.
Well, I mean, and I was writing my column today for Extra Points for Sure Local. And I mean, it's pretty simple, right? You got three scenarios. The one scenario is they trade up. The one scenario is they trade down. And the other scenario is they stay put, right? It's one of those three scenarios. And just given the way that Howie is, you kind of feel like the stay put one doesn't feel like that's going to be the one. But if that's the case, if they stay put at 12, I think they're going to go for one of the two corners. And I do feel like the Cowboys are in love with Surtain. So I feel like Surtain won't be there. So then I figure they'd go in the other way and get the other corner, right? That's Horn.
J.C. Horn is South Carolina. He is the son of Joe Horn, who was, by the way, once a guest on this very show, the Sports Bash. Joe Horn. There was a time when he was being rumored to sign with Philadelphia as a free agent, and we tracked him down and got him on. He actually said something that made some news. I don't remember what it was.
Oh, that's fun. That's always fun,
Yeah.
When you're breaking news on this program, I'm okay with that.
I might have to see if I still have Joe Horn's number. Maybe we can get him on before the draft here to talk about his son. But no, his son is, to me, a very intriguing prospect. So, Pete Thompson, if you trade up, is there one guy that you would trade up to get?
Kyle Pitts. If Kyle Pitts somehow makes it past all the initial, if there's such a run on quarterbacks that Kyle Pitts is somehow there, I would trade up to get him. I think he's a game changer, but I don't think that I don't know that all the pieces are in play on that.
Well, the pieces would be in play. I mean, they have 2 third-rounders, right? Have an extra first-rounder, 2 extra first-rounders maybe next year. So, I mean, if they wanted to.
That's true. That is the biggest thing that they have, too. I mean, but then do you really want to get rid of those? The number of picks that they are picking up for next year is what's so attractive. Because doesn't everybody agree that this year, although this year's draft has talent, that next year, because so many people elected to take another year and elected to stay in school and not come out, that and there's so many great unknowns about this. And I heard you talking about this the other day too, and I agree with that. There wasn't a combine. So, when you look at somebody's 40-yard dash, when you look at their 40 time, is that a universal 40 time? No, because it's always like it's goosed a little bit depending on where they ran and whose number you're looking at.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because if you move back from 6 to 12, you got the people are saying, well, why would you move up again? You already had 6. Well, you are failing to conveniently leaving out to move from 6 to 12 that you added a first-round pick.
Correct.
If you can get the first-round pick, move up again. Here's the key, PT, by not giving that first-round pick up. You're not going to use that pick to go back up. That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So the question is, to get from 12, you're not – okay, most likely the Giants and the Cowboys are not going to trade with you.
Correct.
So you go from 12 to 7, 8, or 9 without giving up the first-round pick from next year. Obviously, the Eagles think they could. Otherwise, they wouldn't have moved back to 12 if they didn't think they can get back up without using that first-round pick.
And if they move ahead of the Cowboys, you bet your sweet Bippy that you think they're going to go for Patrick Surtain, don't you? I mean, that would be the guy that you would think they would be targeting.
Unless Kyle Pitts or Jamar Chase happen to be at 7, 8, or 9, and they can go from 12 to 7, 8, or 9. If like Jamar Chase or Kyle Pitts were at 7 or now 8, I think the Eagles then ramp it up and say, all right, let's get to 8.
Right. What do we have to do? What do we have to give up to get to that spot? And
well, here's a question for you. Would you use the Colts pick that you got for Wentz, the one that has playing time projections that could be a first-round pick?
Right. And everybody thinks it'll be a first-round pick.
Yeah,
but,
he has
it's
75% of the snaps for that to be a first-round pick. So the anticipation is if he's the starter, that would be attainable. But would you
I mean, who's really looking to move out? Is it Detroit at 7? Is that the one that's the most? Because Carolina seems like they're happy with where they are. Although, what if Denver gets to a situation? Doesn't Denver want a quarterback? They're not going to move if all the quarterbacks are gone that they want. Is then Denver? Do you jump ahead of the Cowboys and the Giants to move into that Denver spot at 9?
Here's a scenario then. At 9, if there's 2 quarterbacks on the board, Denver might say, well, Dallas isn't taking one and New York's not taking one.
Right.
So we'll move back to 12. You can take our spot at 9 if you give us your 3rd round pick.
Yeah. But again, the key there, I think that sounds great to me. And then you get Surtain, and then the Cowboys don't get him, and you get like a shutdown corner on the opposite side of Darius Slay. And and you're in like Flynn. And Eagles fans would love that move. You know, remember how much they loved when they moved up to get their tight end, right? You know, that was Goddard, wasn't it? When you got Dallas ahead of Dallas, that was that move there.
Yeah. Now, the other scenario, Peter.
Michael?
At 12, somebody wants 12 behind you to get a quarterback, and you move down. In that situation, I think you most likely take an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman. Do you like that scenario.
Well, yeah, I do, but of course, it's not going to be Penei Sewell. He's going to be long gone, but it could be Rashawn Slater. And I don't know if Slater's gotten enough attention or, that's a guy that, quite frankly, he's sort of that jackknife guy, a jack of all trades. You could put him in a couple different positions, but still have him step in and be an established NFL player from the word Jump Street. That's how high people are on Slater. So, I know it's not a sexy pick but good Lord. For all the problems that the team had on the line this past season, could you really argue with them if they moved down a couple spots, got another asset? Here's the deal. What's going to happen on Thursday night isn't the full picture. So whatever they do, you have to let it play out to see, there's so much talent that takes place in the second round and so much wheeling and dealing that they'll still be able to do that you can't just end all be all, either crucify them or coronate them and have a parade in their honor based off of one pick that takes place on Thursday night. I think everybody needs to remember that. That's just one pick of the 11 that they're starting out with. That's a good point. I think you've been in this town long enough to know that Eagles fans aren't very patient or rational. No, they're going to react. It's like, I didn't watch the Oscars the other night, but I did see social media blew up because how dare they not give the Best Actor award to Chadwick Boseman? It's going to be something like that. No matter what the Eagles are going to do, some people are going to be okay with it, but more than often, most of the people are going to find a reason to hate it. It's Negadelphia. It ain't woohoo Adelphia. Yeah. All right, PT. Real quick, the Phillies made an interesting move yesterday. Maybe a desperate move from a desperate team. They tried Roman Quinn for 30 at-bats, Mickey Moniak for about 20 at-bats. Adam Hazley left the team for an undisclosed reason. Scott Kingery has been miserable. So in 21 games, they decided they need to go to Odubel Herrera. Desperate move, or is there legit reasoning that it had to be done? The legit reasoning that it had to be done is they really were getting no production out of any of the other guys, and then nobody could have foreseen that Adam Hazley was just going to kind of bail on him and need his own time. Moniak was not the answer. Quinn was not the answer. Hazley, even when he was around, they were combined 7 for 69. That's 101. They were awful. They were brutal in center field. And, Moniak, 3 for 25 and 12 strikeouts in those 9 games. It just, none of that was working. McCutchen is all like 2/3 of their outfield is an issue right now because McCutchen misplayed a ball in Denver. And by the way, that Denver series really pissed me off. I don't know about you, but I stayed up late on Friday to watch that game, and then they blew it, and that ticked me off. And then on Saturday, they were able to rally and get a win for Nola, but then that was an embarrassment. 12-2 on Sunday. That was a joke. Okay, thank you. I guess I'll go watch something else now. So at least thank God Zach Wheeler did what Zach Wheeler did yesterday. And I did hear you talking earlier. We'll see if we get a Zach squared. Go from the Zach with the K, that's Wheeler, I was listening, to the Zach with the H, that's Eflin, and, get a little back-to-back. Back-to-back Zach. Yeah. By the way, I heard you say you went to Netflix over watching the two teams on Saturday. On Sunday. In the locker room. Yeah. But that's how bad it was on Saturday. Like the minute I was so excited, I wasn't excited, but I was definitely into my mixed feelings occasionally on the association, right? But I sat there and said, well, they didn't have all their horses, I'll tune in to watch this game against the Bucks because I didn't really see the Sixers play the Bucks. Let me see what they can do in this Saturday. And it's a 3:00 start. It's right in the PT's wheelhouse. I've been up since 5, but I got just enough energy to watch this thing. And boy, the minute they started the broadcast and said, and surprising note here, Joel Embiid's not going to, I thought, you're playing the B team against the Bucks. Forget about it. I'm not even tuning in. What's on Netflix? You guys were talking on Sunday in the locker room, and Billy's very famous for big guys beat up little guys, right? Yeah, that's his line. Big guys beat up little guys. Yeah, I said, you know who else echoed that line? Chip Kelly. That didn't work out very well for Chip Kelly. I'll take Tyreek Hill. You can have the other guy, right? Right. Tyreek Hill's about 5'9". Big guys don't always beat up little guys. You know what wins? Talent. The most talent. You know who's big? J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. He stinks. Yep. So Billy, who contradicts himself every 3 minutes,
and you didn't put him in his place, so I was a little disappointed.
Well, yeah, I mean, you wanted me to put him. I put him enough in his place, but you wanted me to lock away the key. You wanted me to put him in solitary confinement, take away his food,
hang him over the head, and tell him, Billy, you sound like an idiot. You're not. You're contradicting yourself over and over and over. He says he wants the guy on LSU. He won a national championship, and you said, what about the guy from Alabama? He's too small. Well, he won a national championship too.
Yeah, and plus, I mean, and you could even say which guy from Alabama too, right? I mean, do you want Waddle or do you want Devontae Smith? Who do you want?
Well, one of them's small. Waddle is small, but then on the flip side, he also was on a national championship team. So is he a small guy on a national championship team? Do you not want that? I was confused.
I mean, he's a couple inches shorter, but believe it or not, if you do the tail of the tape, right, Jalen Waddle's about 15 pounds heavier than Devontae Smith.
Waddle's shorter, but he's heavier. Smith is taller, but he's light. But they both won the national championship, so I don't know if those guys would be acceptable to the Schweimer. They won national championship, but they're small. Which one?
I mean, it's funny to sit there and think, too, like so many people easily dismiss Waddle because they say they already have a player like that in Jalen Reagor. Well, if one is good, isn't two better? I mean, you're the defense, and you're trying to figure out how to stop the Philadelphia Eagles, and they have not one but two guys that can burn you. Isn't that better?
Well, it's better than having two big guys like J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, who stinks, and Travis Fulgham, who's a big guy but can't play. I mean,
right, like running in quicksand. Yeah,
right. The whole notion of the big guy beats up little guy is a very antiquated way of thinking.
Yep, but we love Billy. I had a good time doing that with him. I'll do it again as my schedule lightens up.
Yeah, you guys are fun. Although sometimes you let him get away with things that,
You're saying I let him off the hook. I had him down and I let him off the hook.
Yeah. So those days when he can just start and nobody pushes back on him, he feels like he said something that has merit when it has zero merit.
Oh, he does hear all, though. It was really funny. I felt like you at one point. Somebody tweeted something negative at him, and he was like 2 segments later, he was still bothered by what the person tweeted at him. I was like, you're like that cat, like, going after the thing, just like
I don't know that I've ever met more sensitive, and I know you, so I don't know.
Right, that's true. Somebody more sensitive than me? Holy
mackerel. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. I do want to get your thoughts as El Capitan passed Brian Propp. Now, speaking of Billy, a couple of weeks ago, he said Giroux has small legs, therefore he stinks.
Oh, geez. I don't know about that. I mean, look, Giroux, if he didn't have to
in that show, Josh was, but essentially he was saying he's small legs and he's a small guy. Big guys are better than small guys. And Giroux has small legs, and therefore he's not good.
I mean, he's not good, and yet he now is past Propp to be third on the all-time point list. I mean,
but I will say this. Propp is third on the list, but he played about 200 more games than or Giroux passed him, but he played about 200 more games, I believe.
Yeah, and I mean, it's different eras. You're trying to compare
Giroux or Propp.
Who's the better player?
Yeah.
Who's the better overall player?
Yeah.
I think you'd have to say Brian Propp. I don't remember Claude Giroux being on any Canada Cups and having guys fight over him. Mario Lemieux and Wayne Gretzky, the two best players in the world at the time, both were arguing because they both wanted Brian Propp on their wing. I mean, I don't think, with all due respect to G, I don't think top players in the game have ever been fighting over and saying they want him.
Okay, now this is an interesting point. Many people consider Giroux one of the better players in the league. I don't know that Propp was ever thought of in that. He was thought of as like the complementary player.
Yeah, and
Propp's a better play than Giroux, which should restructure our thoughts about what G really is, a complementary player.
He's a complimentary player who's had a hell of a run and a lot of points and does a lot of things that don't show up in the box score. The guy wins faceoffs. The guy plays hurt. Maybe he's not enough of a vocal leader sometimes in the dressing room, but I mean, he tries to lead by example. And sometimes I think maybe that can be a disconnect too, as they floundered this season at some point, and I don't know if he did this or not, but at some point you have to have a closed door meeting and you have to get in those guys' faces and almost challenge them to play with some damn heart. And I don't know that G ever did that. I think he always felt like, quietly they should understand that this is the message. And that wouldn't have flown back in the 70s and the 80s and even the 90s. You could see guys like Scott Hartnell's on the broadcast now. When Oscar Lindblom had to fight, you could see guys like Scott Hartnell cringing that it had to come to that. You're sending out the cancer survivor to fight your battles for you. What the heck is going on here? But, one thing that's intriguing, they're going to have a new guy tonight. The new defenseman's going to make his debut. I want to see some of these new faces. You know what I mean? Like, here's the chance. Like, they're not mathematically out of it yet, but they're far enough out of it that, if that's the case, let's see some of these new guys and what they can do, right? And it's Igor Zamula is his name. They actually call him Big Z. So let's see, get him in there. We've seen Wade Allison. He's added some energy. We've seen Jackson Cates. If Cam York can get healthy, they'll throw him in. Throw in Felix Sandstrom. It doesn't look like we're going to see Carter Hart again. So if that's the case, now Brian Elliott's playing for a contract, by the way. But, throw some guys in.
Yeah, they're playing out the stretch. They're not making the playoffs. All right. Pete Thompson, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk on the hotline. It's a Tuesday with Thompson, spirited stuff. All right, Peter, we'll see you Friday, man.
How's my hair look, by the way? My hairstyle
I was going to comment on that earlier.
Yeah.
That you had a nice cut there.
Yes, Kate, my hairstylist.
Product?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She puts the product in. She shaves the back of the neck. She uses like a certain setting on the clippers. I mean, she was very excited. She's like, "Oh, will you say my name on the radio?" I'm like, "Well, actually, I'll say your name on the video because that's why you need to make me look good. I'm in this little box here." And she's like, "Ooh, okay." So there you go, Kate. Nice job.
I got to go. John Clayton's up next.
Yeah, he's a little more important than me.
See ya. John Clayton, Pete Thompson, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. All right, when we come back, John Clayton, the professor, is in the house. His top 50 prospects. We want to kind of break down some of the possibilities at 12 and what separates some of the best prospects. That's coming up with the professor, John Clayton. NFL draft coming up on Thursday. Top 50 prospects. What are the difference between some of these guys? John Clayton last week told us something very interesting about the amount of players that decided to go back to college, making this draft a little light at the back end, about 5th round or so. But who are some of the guys in this draft that he likes in the top 50? He ranks them over at the Washington Post, the top 50 prospects for this year's NFL draft, plus a little news and notes as we get closer to the NFL draft with John Clayton, longtime NFL writer. The Washington Post joins us now here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline, just 2 days now before the NFL draft. They'll be sad when it's gone, but I know everybody's waiting for it, highly anticipating this draft, John. I know a lot of people are saying this is one of the more intriguing drafts maybe ever because of the lack of combine, lack of the ability to meet these guys face-to-face. So there's a big unknown around this draft class.
And even a bigger unknown, too, because I know Jerry Jones was lamenting about this today. He was saying, of course, the medicals are the worst he's ever been involved in because even some of the players who were supposed to be at the 150 who showed up at the Indy recheck, and that was the only time that they've been in one place together. Some didn't even go for all the extra stuff that the doctors wanted. And that's a disappointment. So there's so much lack of information about the injuries, where these players are. I mean, you still have the 6, 7, maybe 8 opt-outs in the first round, haven't played since 2019. And with 1,046 players that are going to stay for that super senior season, that leaves basically 600 and some guys for this year's draft. And I don't know if you saw Carolina Scott McKittrick, their general manager, says they only have draftable grades on 116 players.
Yeah, that's that makes this really interesting. You ranked your top 50 prospects for this draft over at the Washington Post, and some of these are very interesting. So I want to get your take. At 7 and 8, they're back-to-back, which makes it like everybody. They're right there. You can go one way or the other. But what separates Devonta Smith and Jalen Waddle for you?
It's kind of like the argument last year with the 2 Alabama wide receivers. One, of course, one had speed and the other had the size. And so it depends. Like, for example, in this case where I did put them up 7 and 8, 7, and then I had Jalen Waddle 9. With the case of the Heisman Trophy winner, he's just so fast. I know he's only 166 pounds. He's comparable to a faster version of Marvin Harrison, but Marvin, of course, went into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Waylon's bigger, Waddle's bigger. I mean, he's a big playmaker and all this stuff, and they're both good. But the interesting part is that I'm going by the idea that Detroit is not taking a quarterback and is going wide receiver, and what they want more than anything else is the speed. And that's what Smith offers. He offers the deep breakaway speed to make big plays. So the comparable on him is Tyreek Hill. And, of course, I know Hill wasn't that high of a draft choice, but he's so good. And so that's what Detroit wants. And then the interesting part about all this is that what happens to Waddle, because, I don't necessarily think he's going to go 8 to Carolina because I think they're okay at wide receiver. Then, number 9 is going to probably be Justin Fields if he's there going to Denver. Number 10 is going to be Patrick Surtain, the cornerback going to Dallas. And the interesting thing now is if you're now the New York Giants, right, and Micah Parsons drops to you as one of the best defensive players, do you take him or do you take Waddle? And if Waddle does not go to the Giants, look what's there right now for the Eagles, because they have a chance then to get the second best cornerback, J.C. Horn, or to get Waddle, the second best receiver.
Yeah, that would be an interesting conundrum for Howie Roseman. I think, he's got the 2. He's got a corner. They got to get a corner in this draft. Their cornerback situation is an absolute mess. So for you have Patrick Surtain at number 9, J.C. Horn at number 14. So what are some of the differences there that you have Surtain at 9 and Horn at 14?
Well, the difference is that, Surtain is the perfect matchup man-to-man press cover guy. He's a long angular body. He's got that arm reach. And you've got Dan Quinn now coming from Atlanta with that Seahawks system taking over the defense. Okay. And so this is the type of guy that can go cover 1, cover 3, and also play man, but also press. And so that's why I think that, Dallas takes him. And technically, based on the way my mock drafts are, that's going to be the first defensive player taken unless the Eagles jump and try to get over Dallas and try to get maybe get Surtain. But no, I think that right now Surtain. I mean, again, Horn's good because he's been rising up so quickly. Caleb Farley was the number 2 cornerback. He's had 2 back procedures, and I have him dropping down into the the mid-20s. And because again, it's like how bad is the back, and how much is that going to hold him back? But he's a great cornerback too. The good thing for Howie and the Eagles is that this is a real good cornerback draft, and so you can also a good wide receiver draft, and so you can get some wide receivers in the 4th round. You can get good cornerbacks into the 3rd round, and it's just very deep that way. And so it's a good shopping experience if you're the Eagles and what they want.
You have Micah Parsons as the 12th rated prospect. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to go number 12, but if he was on the board at number 12, do you think Howie Roseman and the Eagles, who haven't drafted a linebacker in the 1st round since 1979, would be inclined to take him?
I would tend to think no, because when you look at Howie's track record, I mean, he likes 5 positions, the 5 paid positions. He likes quarterback, he likes cornerback, he likes wide receiver, he likes left tackle, right tackle, and he likes a pass rusher. And so that, linebacker, because again, this is still going to be a 4-3 defense, is, not one of those big priorities. And so I would doubt he would do it, but you've got to think about it because he's certainly one of the best defensive players in the draft. He's a fast linebacker, and there's needs at the linebacker position.
Sure is, and there's been there for a while. They did sign Eric Wilson in the offseason, which is a nice little fit. We'll see, but that doesn't really shore them up. All right, John Clayton, Washington Post, he's got his top favorite. Let me go back to the 2 receivers real quick, Smith and Waddle. How do they compare to Ruggs and Judy from last year?
Well, it's interesting because I thought, because I know Mick doing a lot of radio down in Alabama, I kept asking them, who's the better of the 2? And they said, okay, who's the number 1 guy? And they said it was Judy. Because you look at Judy, and I mean, he also reminds you of Marvin Harrison. Ruggs is just that fast guy that can go the 9 route, make the big plays downfield. But you notice it didn't work as well for him as it did for Judy. I mean, I think that's why I think Denver got the best of that deal getting Judy. And Ruggs, as good as he is, I just think you need to have more than just about you don't want to be a one-trick pony. You want to have the ability to, go ahead and, hit all the routes. Judy can do all the routes. And I think that, particularly now coming up in year 2, Courtland Sutton coming back, I think he can have a pretty good year this year, depending on what happens at quarterback for the Denver Broncos.
What about the Denver Broncos on draft day? Are they a team that is primed to get out of that spot? Because I feel 9, Philly at 12. If Philly wants to move up, 9 might be one of the spots if somebody starts falling. So does Denver, is their phone available? Are they taking calls?
They're taking calls, and they're also making calls too, because it wouldn't surprise me, because if they can't get Teddy Bridgewater in the next 48 hours out of Carolina, then what I could see is that they'll go ahead and maybe call up to Detroit at 7 to see if they can get Justin Fields if he falls down to number 7. And unless a quarterback goes to Atlanta at 4, then the next quarterback is going to fall to at least 7 or 8. And so you want to make sure that you jump above any team trying to trade up with Carolina that might take a quarterback. And you also want to make sure that you can get the quarterback because they need somebody to challenge. I thought the interesting thing in Philly or in Denver is the fact that Pro Football Focus, believe it or not, and this stunned me, ranked them for talent on the roster as the 6th best team in the NFL.
Wow.
They said that they had the best secondary, particularly, with the additions they've had with Ronald Darby and also getting Kyle Fuller, having Justin Simmons and then being able to get Kareem Jackson back at a little less money. And they've got Bryce Callahan. And now it would be interesting if they don't take a quarterback and the quarterbacks are gone. I could see them taking Micah Parsons because, that just gives them another fast linebacker on a defense right now that very well could be top 5, top 7.
That's very interesting. I did not see that, the Denver roster there. All right, draft night gets here. We all believe, I guess, which I still don't know that I agree with, that San Francisco is going to take a quarter. I'm not saying I wouldn't agree that I wouldn't have made the trade if I were them, but they're there now. They're going to take a quarterback. What does that mean for their current quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo?
Well, the rumors starting to really heat up today is that now if they do take Mac Jones, who will be ready much faster than Trey Lance, that very well they could trade Jimmy Garoppolo during the draft at some point. And that may be something that's going to intrigue the New England Patriots. Certainly, I know Washington and Chicago are going to be involved with that. And they've been asking for a number one, but I think what's going to be ending up happening is because of his big contract that they may have to shift off and go to a number two or a number three. And so something I think could happen there, and it could happen very quickly.
All right, I want to go. We're going back to the top 50 as John Clayton ranks him at the Washington Post. Another spot, I guess, that Philly could be in play for is offensive line. Probably not Penei Sewell, but after him, you've got Rashawn Slater, Vera Tucker. Is that a trade back spot, or are you comfortable staying at 12 and picking one of those guys?
Right now, I think the second offensive lineman, he should go. That, of course, being one that Penei Sewell, I still think is going to go 4 to the Atlanta Falcons. If not, he's going to go 5 to Cincinnati. But I think Rashawn Slater from Northwestern could end up going to Carolina at number 8. But now when you're talking about the rest of the offensive line, whether it's going to be Christian Darrisaw and some of the others, that could be a trade back position that, Philadelphia does it. But right now, say what you want about the trade that Philly made. They put themselves in a great position. They moved down from 6, but now they're in a position to get the second best cornerback, the second best wide receiver. And I guess technically, even in trading back, they can get the third best offensive lineman.
I find this interesting in your top 50. You also, people say, well, there's 5 as quarterbacks. You also have Kellen Mond, Kyle Trask. So there's more than just the 5 that everybody seems to be talking about. So do you think some of those guys could go in round 2?
I think so, yeah. Particularly toward the bottom. I don't know about the bottom, but like, for example, let's say New England can't get Jimmy Garoppolo, can't trade up to get one of the quarterbacks. I know they're looking at Trask, and are considering him. Mond, I think, has also got some good talent. Now the question is going to be, because again, you get Washington and you also got Chicago. They want to have another quarterback come in. And if they can't get the veteran quarterback like a Jimmy Garoppolo, or they can't trade up, I can see them in the second round looking to do something, even if it means they might have to move back a little bit.
Now, John, I feel like the running back is kind of becoming more important again, but that doesn't mean the teams are going to start drafting them higher. Where do we see the running backs kind of start moving?
Well, I think Miami's going to take one at number 18, but they also might be one of the idea of trading back a few spots and maybe getting some extra draft choice, because the one thing they can't do is move to 23 or 24, because the Jets could take Najee Harris. They could also and Pittsburgh might take Najee Harris. Pittsburgh needs a running back more than anything else. So the possibilities there that the 24, they could take Etienne, the other running back, and then the third one I think is going to be Jordan Williams. That he'll be one that will go somewhere in the second round. Etienne could be the only other one going in the first round, but that depends on what Pittsburgh wants to do. They have needs on the offensive line. They have needs as an edge rusher, and they may still wait. But I think they may jump on the next guy.
Check out John Clayton's top 50 draft prospect rankings at the Washington Post. And obviously the draft on Thursday night, if you haven't been paying attention, it's Thursday night. It's right here on 97.3 ESPN. And John Clayton, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Great breakdown, John. We appreciate it as always.
Okay, thanks.
All right, John Clayton here on the Sports Bash, the professor. And he mentioned the separation between Waddle and Smith. He has them ranked 7 and 8. So it's really, which guy do you like better? Which guy do you think fits into your offense better? I think the point we brought up earlier with Andrew about the X receiver that Nick Sirianni brought up, all shapes and sizes. Which of those guys can get off the line better? That's the guy that I think appeals to the Philadelphia Eagles. They might say neither of those guys get off the line very good, and that we could get Rashad Bateman maybe at 37, or Kadarius Toney at 37, or somebody to that effect. I still think the signs point to taking a corner or trading back in round 1. That's where I'm at on a Tuesday. Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. And don't forget, you can watch the show live many ways: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Smart TV, go to the YouTube app on your television and just search 973 ESPN. Go to Facebook, pull up your Twitter feed, search 973 ESPN. Hey, I want to tell you about my friends over at Trifecta Therapeutics. One a lot of times this time of the year, the seasons are changing. You're getting outside. You're doing new things. You're using new muscles. And if you're using new muscles, there's a possibility you could, you haven't used them in a while, pull a hammy, groin, maybe something in your elbow, your shoulder. You're throwing BP to your son. You're doing something that you haven't done in a while. Well, if you're a weekend warrior, maybe you're even a finely tuned athlete. Maybe you're someone that gets out there all the time and you just turned that ankle. You did something that you're not used to doing. Trifecta helps the pros and the Joes. Stop settling for less. Get with the best. To schedule your free discovery session today, use code ESPN Radio at trifectatherapeutics.com or call today. They'll get you feeling better, playing better, and staying better. That's the key. Trifecta Therapeutics. They're located centrally for everyone in South Jersey, right in Glassboro. All right, let's get into the 5 sounds of the day, brought to you by your Delaware Valley Acura dealers. For great deals on Acura's award-winning lineup, shop online at DelValAcuraDealers.com. What do you know?
What do you know, Joe?
Got the Schweimer all riled up today, huh?
I told him to text you.
He has been texting me. He doesn't like my answers. I would like to hear his side of the story, but I already heard it. He's incorrect, as usual.
Listen, man, I'm just here to pass along the message. Don't shoot the messenger.
I can see steam coming out of his hairpiece.
I think Billy's hair is real.
Maybe, but then it's got the spray-on can.
I think he uses the product.
He's probably so angry right now. He's got steam coming out of his ears. I can definitely tell you. I can picture him right now, probably on the side of the road honking his horn. All right, what do you got? What do we got today?
We got a lot today. We got a lot of people today.
We did have a lot of people. MKB. We finally got a glimpse last night of what George Hill gave the Sixers.
It was expected it was going to take him a couple of games to get his feet back under him to get accustomed to the Sixers and their style and everything. But I think over the past few games, you're starting to see exactly what he brings to the floor, which is another good perimeter defender. He's a guy that can, guard a point guard or a shooting guard on the other team and do a good job. But then also on offense, he just, he plays the game at his own pace. He doesn't get sped up. He has a high basketball IQ. He makes good decisions. He can, find his teammates, and he can knock down shots. So I think overall, he's going to be a huge piece for the Sixers moving forward into the postseason.
Well, we heard so much about George Hill. George Hill, it took a while to play. Then he played, and then Simmons was out.
Right.
First time we saw him with Simmons. I don't want to say did he live up to it, but do we think he's going to be a big impact in the playoffs?
I don't know about big, but I think he'll have an impact because he's going to do something his team has not had in a long time, which is a veteran guard who stabilizes the team when Ben is not on the floor. Or if you have a situation where you went to Ben, hey, Ben, go focus on guarding Kevin Durant or Giannis and let George Hill run the offense.
The biggest thing for me, that's a great point. The biggest thing for me is Hill's ability to defend should take some of the pressure off of Simmons, but also add to how they can defend. If you want to end the game with a lead with Simmons, Hill, Thibault, Embiid, and Harris.
Flexibility.
That's a big difference than Seth Curry.
Absolutely.
Seth Curry's not a great defender.
No, he's not. Seth Curry's out there to space the floor and get your points.
John Clayton said this about the depth at corner and wide receiver, which happen to be 2 spots the Eagles need a lot of help in.
The good thing for Howie.
What about Howie?
The good thing for Howie and the Eagles is that this is a real good cornerback draft. And so you can also good wide receiver draft. And so you can get some wide receivers in the 4th round. You can get good cornerbacks into the 3rd round. And it's just very deep that way. And so it's a good shopping experience if you're the Eagles and what they want.
So I think, like he said, the good news there is they have the corner's their biggest need. Wide receiver, I guess, is a need too. It is. They have a 1st-round pick and a 2nd-round pick still on their roster they need to get more out of. But they can get the other guy if they don't take the one in the 1st, or they can double up.
Yeah, and it's one of those deals where I like him saying, listen, this can be a good shopping experience because remember last year, the best production wide receivers in the draft were not the top 3 taken. They were Justin Jefferson and T. Higgins. One guy was late in the 1st round. The other guy was high in the 2nd round. The Eagles can still find wide receiver talent in this draft. It doesn't have to be Waddle or Smith.
Speaking of Waddle or Smith, Andrew DiCecco gave his thoughts on those two.
I would say Waddle, just from an athletic profile standpoint. I mean, I think Smith can do it, but I also do believe that his size is really going to be a factor. I think he can do it in spurts, but I don't think he can do it. He can play that role consistently. Now, there are ways you can scheme those guys open, as you've seen in the past. But I mean, when I envision an X receiver, I envision someone more along the lines of a Terrace Marshall or what they thought they were getting in J.J. Arthega-Whiteside. You need someone to kind of fill that Alshon role, and I don't know that those guys quite fit the bill.
So he's saying that neither one of those guys is the right fit for X.
Yeah, it's interesting because you asked him about what Sirianni said, and he kind of just dismissed what Sirianni said. Like, look, this is what I think of these guys. I don't envision them as X receivers in the NFL. I know that DiCecco has been pretty consistent saying he doesn't think Smith can consistently play the X because he can't get separation consistently. My thing is that I feel like Sirianni told us last week what he's looking for. He's looking for guys who get separation. He's looking for guys who get open pretty much every time. And there's one receiver in this draft that fits that bill better than anyone else. And it's not Waddle, and it's not Smith. It's not even Jamar Chase. It's Rashad Bateman. Bateman at Minnesota found ways in double and triple coverage to get open for a mediocre quarterback in the Big Ten.
Jeff Nadu said that earlier. He liked that as well. Last night, I should say, Odubel Herrera called up. He's back in the lineup tonight. Went 0 for 3 with a strikeout last night. Frank Klose, your thoughts?
In a way, this is like a panic move. You know, the Phillies aren't scoring runs, and actually, if it's pretty interesting that if you look at the games they're losing, it's usually when the back end of the starting rotation is pitching and they're not out slugging the opponents. So I just feel like they were kind of desperate for some offense, and looking at center field as a whole, they just figured, what the heck, we might as well give Herrera one last shot.
If the Phillies are not 500 and center field is struggling, do they make this move? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
I think if you would have gotten better production from Quinn and or Moniak, I don't think Herrera's here.
If you were getting production, that's one thing. I'm saying they're still hitting 101, but the team is not 500. They're, I don't know, give me a record.
5 games over 500?
Sure, absolutely. They're not meddling in the middle.
Yeah, I still think there's something else going on here that we haven't been told, because they don't bring up Herrera just because of that. I feel like there's got to be, like, maybe Girardi went to Dombrowski and was like, listen, man, we need to pick me up. We need a little infusion here.
That'll do it. Sports Bash live on a Tuesday is in the books. Ryan Roberts is back tomorrow to talk draft. Paul Hudrick will be here. Jeff Mosher will be here. Jeff Kerr will be here. So a big football show tomorrow. Flyers tonight on 97.3 ESPN. Kevin Durso tonight at 6:40 game night. And Andy McNamara talks a little draft in about 20 minutes from now. I have a Sports Bash cash code word for you. It's worth $1,000, and you're getting it right now.